It was optional, right?
The Lake Association, they always hold their meetings over there, because they're, oh yeah, it's not a return, right? 120 people. Fun games. Oh yeah, come on. What else would you be doing?
Can you go back to the 15-minute meeting? What's that? Can you go back to the 15-minute meeting?
So after I who's after me?
Me.
That's Eric. I guess I go.
Don't, yes, don't.
I got cords too.
As will I be.
Okay. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'd like to rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask that you please try to remain quiet and be respectful. Pam, will you have the call to order, or call the roll call, please?
Sure. Greg Carnes,
Here.
Dean Hawes,
Here.
Jennifer Eden. Here. Herman Ferguson,
Here.
Chris Rapetta,
Here.
Sarah Dolman Jersey. Here. Pam Loeffler. Here.
All right,
Hey, Greg, I just have a point of order. Is the public hearing part of the meeting, right?
Shouldn't it be part of our agenda?
It's,
No,
the public
No.
hearing is not part of our meeting,
no.
but it's
No,
on the agenda.
Public hearing is a public hearing.
No, I'm just wondering if we should approve the agenda first, that's all.
No. No, we're going to open the public hearing. I've looked at the past ones, this is the format.
Okay. Just checking.
Yep, thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing, and the purpose of this public hearing is to address the charges of malfeasance and misfeasance against Tyrone Township Planning Commission member Chris Rapetta. At the Tyrone Township Board of Trustees meeting held February 18th, 2025, and pursuant to the Michigan Planning Enabling Act 2008, Public Act 33, MCL 125.3801, and more specifically, MCL 125.3 159, the Tyrone Township Board of Trustees has charged you with malfeasance and misfeasance for the following reasons. Conspired to conceive and actively participated in drafting a letter to the Planning Commission members, informing them that the Township Board was charging them with nonfeasance and requested that they appear before the Board for a public hearing to explain their position. Conducted township business in the name of the Township Board and thereby misrepresented the Board and its authority. Language written in the letter directly stated that the Township Board made a collective decision to charge planning commissioners with nonfeasance, even though there was never a publicly held meeting of the Township Board, a quorum present, or a vote taken. Was present upon letter delivery, knowing the letter held false statements that would adversely impact fellow planning commissioners. We've also printed a protocol for the public hearing so that it will flow smoothly. The first item on that will be calling the public hearing to order. The second item is trustee participation, introduction of evidence by the trustees, then introduction of evidence by Trustee Rapetta, and then a trustee rebuttal. Then number 3, we will have presentation by the Tyrone Township Special Counsel, John Galuli. Then number 4, presentation by Mr. Rapetta's counsel, Nick Curso. I understand Nick is not going to be here tonight?
That's correct. I'll make a statement he's prepared during that time.
So your counsel has prepared a statement for you to read?
That's right.
Okay. Number 5, we'll have a brief rebuttal from the Township Special Counsel, John Galuli. And then number 6, we will have public comments. During public comment, you must state your full name clearly for the public hearing. And I ask that you speak clearly into the microphone because it needs to be recorded and the video audience needs to also hear you. So I'll call the public hearing to order, and the first trustee.
That will be me. I will read the timeline of the events. November 20th, 24, Chris Rapetta was sworn into office as Tyrone Township trustee. On December 3rd, 2024, Chris Rapetta was appointed ex officio of the Planning Commission. Between the dates of December 2nd, 2024 and December 10th, 2024, conspired to write letter to Planning Commission. Chris Rapetta, along with Trustee Haas, Supervisor Carnes, conspired to write, deliberate, and revise a letter to the Township Planning Commission regarding charges of nonfeasance using written language that fraudulently implicated the Township Board as its authority. December 10th, 2024, delivery of the letter to the Planning Commission was delivered in person by Supervisor Greg Carnes, Trustee Haas, and Trustee ex officio Rapetta, present at the conclusion of the regular scheduled Planning Commission meeting. December 11th, 2024, order of destruction of letter. Supervisor Carnes called Planning Commission members and asked them to destroy the letter, an official township document. December 17th, 2024, impact on the PC members and township. At a regularly scheduled township board meeting, Planning Commission members who received the letter expressed concern describing personal, professional impacts and asked for Trustee Rapetta's removal. The Planning Commission commissioners affected also stated that they sought legal counsel. On December 18th, 2024, FOIA request received. On 1/7 of 25, board action in response to misconduct. The Township Board discussed and voted by a majority to censure Trustee Rapetta, Trustee Hawes, and Supervisor Carnes. The Township Board also discussed consideration for the removal of Trustee Rapetta from his appointed position as ex officio to the Planning Commission. On January 16th of 2025, a letter was received from their attorney, Nicholas Caro. The
Curcio.
Township, what is it?
Curcio.
Curcio. Thank you. The Township Board received a letter from Nicholas Curcio representing trustees Rapetta and Hawes. The letter requested that all three censures be rescinded and threatened legal action if the board moved forward with a removal process from the Planning Commission of the trustee Rapetta. On February 18th, 2025, request denied. Trustee Rapetta motion to rescind censure for himself, Trustee Hawes, and Supervisor Carnes. The motion did not carry. The Township Board voted by a majority to move forward with charges of misfeasance and malfeasance and scheduled a public hearing. Trustee Rapetta stated he would check his calendar to let the clerk know his availability for a public hearing. No correspondence was received. February 24th, 2025, Trustee Rapetta filed lawsuit versus Tyrone Township. Trustee Rapetta filed a lawsuit in Livingston County Court asking the court to superintend control to the Township Board authority to stop the public hearing from taking place. And on 3/18 of 2025, court hearing and decision. A court hearing was held in Livingston County Circuit Court, Chris Rapetta versus Tyrone Township. Judge Susan Longsworth issued a written decision after a courtroom hearing started that the request for the court intervention was premature, given that the board had not yet held a public hearing or rendered the decision. And on 3/25 of 2025, a public hearing date was set for April 15th, 2025. So what I have is a few questions myself, a few points. First of all, on 12/3 of 2024, I asked our attorney that if we had any control over the Planning Commission. Also, at that time was brought up that we talked about attendance, and nothing in the bylaws state anything about the attendance of any Planning Commission member. And I don't know where the 80% thing came up, but also what I was wondering also is when these letters were written, Chris, you asked many times about or talked about transparency, and I just wondered why the rest of the board wasn't included in that letter written thing that you did.
I'll be presenting that in my evidence.
Okay, so that's one thing. And then another thing as far as with that is you took away my right to censure you, or try to, when I have every right to not agree with what you did. And I don't agree at all what you did with the letter. So that's all I have to say right now.
Mr. Rapetta conspired to write the letter to planning commissioners. There are numerous texts and emails that I'll be going through, reading out loud, that were the result of a FOIA request. In the packet, you can look and see. There was the first one, Wednesday, December 18th. Dear Tyrone Township Clerk and FOIA Officer, I respectfully request the following information under the Freedom of Information Act. There was a second one clarifying that. Then there was a third one in response to the individual that had requested the FOIA, and it was mentioned in there Because Mr. Hawes and Mr. Rapetta have refused any communication from the township office other than a hand-delivered letter, Supervisor Carnes has agreed to personally hand-deliver this request. So that was delivered by Mr. Carnes. My understanding here is that there were additional comments in emails from the deputy clerk indicating that some information may or may not have been in there, and she did indicate on Thursday, January 9th, to Greg, Dean, and Chris, per legal counsel, Laura and Ann from Foster Swift, in the conference call Greg participated in. If you have deleted any documents, you must make a statement certifying you delayed that document. Again, this was the advice from legal counsel. So the letter that we're discussing is up on your screen here. Each planning commission member received it, and it states, your attendance record during the 2024 calendar year at the planning commission meetings is less than 80% of held meetings. As a result of this, the township board is charging you with nonfeasance. The township board will hold a public hearing, line item on the agenda of the December 17th, 2024 at 7 p.m. meeting, and your attendance is requested so you can explain your position. Thank you. Greg Carnes, Tyrone Township Supervisor. I will now begin reading the text messages derived from the FOIA requests. This conversation is between Dean Hawes and Chris Rapetta. The date states Thursday, December 5th at 8:03 p.m. PC, this is Chris Rapetta speaking. PC letter and legal reference just emailed to you. Let me know if you have any questions. He continues on, I will work on the agenda as we spoke of tomorrow. Dean states, the letter looks great and I agree the bylaws support us. Chris Rapetta's response, indeed, we need to make sure that Greg sent a personalized letter to each and not just a group letter. What do you think? Dean, yes, has to be addressed to each individual. Hi, Dean. Have you seen a copy of the changes to the nonfeasance?
I'd like to interject right there, please, because what you've removed out of there is my response, which was, no, I haven't. I'd like to know why that was removed out of that.
I'll continue on. Dean, LOL, but they will be surprised when they get their letter of charges and will probably have to re-elect officers. Chris Rapetta, right, unless Greg has taken the bite out of what we submitted to him, which is why I asked if you had seen his changes. Dean's response, he can't. Has to be worded pretty much as we sent. Chris, okay, we will need to check in with him tomorrow. He will probably be running it by the lawyer, would be my guess. I agree with you about the directness of the current wording we provided. Dean, he won't be home till sometime tomorrow. This is a communication between Greg and Chris. Greg Carnes, the supervisor, and Chris Rapetta. Thanks for the call, Greg. One last comment about your consideration of Zach Tucker. I know Sarah likes him and campaigned with him. I also should point out that Zach voted 100% of the time with Mike Cunningham. We need a new start on the Planning Commission and not more Cunningham cronies. Greg's conversation with Chris Rapetta. I emailed my letter to PC members. Look good? Chris responds, let me check. Looks good to me, thanks. Greg then later that evening on December 10th sends a message, "I can't sleep because I'm praying we're doing the right thing." Chris's response, "Yes, I understand. There's no question of non," and that's where the text got cut off. The following day, after the planning commissioners were served with that letter, Greg sends a text to Chris. "Pam just lost it with me because I did not include her and Jennifer on the letter discussion." Chris responds, "Okay." Greg states, "I am in trouble." Chris Rapetta asks Greg, "Did you talk directly to Herman and he told you he would not support the PC letter? Or did that come from Sarah saying that Herman would not support the letter?" Greg responds with the screenshot from Herm. "This is not good. I will not vote for anything that I don't feel comfortable about. Poor communication with me." Tuesday, December 10th at 3:12 p.m., this was the afternoon, right before delivering the letter to the Planning Commission members, Greg Carnes sends an email to Dean Hawes and Chris Rapetta. "Not for publication or discussion. I need to deliver letters to planning commissioners." So I'm going to start at the bottom of this email from Chris Rapetta on December 5th to Dean Hawes. Subject, nonfeasance letter. "Hi, Dean. Here's the letter we spoke about. I am also including copies of the 2 Michigan laws that govern the Planning Commission for your reference if you desire. But this is a primary section that speaks about removal of a member." Page 4 of the attached Michigan Planning Enabling Act, Act 33 of 2008. And he goes on to list some others. So then, to Greg, he sends some attachments and a letter. The letter to, and then the name could be placed in there, Tyrone Township Planning Commission. "Due to your attendance during calendar year 2024, you have attended less than 80% of held meetings, and as a result, we are bringing you up on charges of nonfeasance. We will hold a public hearing where you will be able to defend yourself for possible removal from your appointment. If you do not show up for this meeting, date to be determined, then the Township Board will notify you of our decision regarding your appointment after the meeting is held." Signed, Greg Carnes, Tyrone Township Supervisor. So this letter was sent from Chris, or from Dean to Greg. Dean and Chris had another conversation through text messages on December 5th. Chris asks, "What document format do you want? MA Word? Text file? It will need to be on township letterhead in the end." Dean responds, "Doesn't matter. Whatever is easier." "Okay, I will send the text and email like I did for the agenda items. Then you can copy and paste as you desire." So there was this conspiracy to write a letter to the Planning Commission. Mr. Rapetta was involved with Mr. Carnes and Mr. Hawes in that. All 3 were present at the delivery of the letter to the Planning Commission on December 10th at the conclusion of the meeting. Mr. Carnes has stated several times on record at board meetings that he requested Planning Commission members destroy the letter, making it null and void. Attorney Nick Curcio sent a letter on January 16, 2025, asking the board to rescind censures, which were denied at the February 18th board meeting. Towards the end of the letter from Mr. Rapetta's attorney, the statement reads, "Should the board nevertheless proceed with removal proceedings, Mr. Rapetta will seek all available legal remedies, including but not limited to an action for superintending control in circuit court for Livingston County. In sum, we respectfully request that the board reconsider its censure resolutions. Mr. Rapetta delayed the scheduling of a public hearing due to a lack of response on his availability. At the February 18th, 2025 board meeting, Mr. Rapetta was asked if he would be in attendance at the March 25th, 2025 meeting. He stated, quote, "I have to look at my calendar," end quote. Mr. Rapetta did not communicate his availability to the township in the following days. 7 days after the board meeting, he filed a lawsuit in Livingston County Circuit Court asking the court to superintend control of the board's authority and prevent the public hearing from taking place. Thus, a notice informing Mr. Rapetta of the charges against him and the date of a public hearing could not be sent. The lawsuit that was filed in the 44th Circuit Court for Livingston County was a verified complaint for order of superintending control. And I will just read one highlight from here, explaining what this is. This complaint seeks to prevent the Tyrone Township Board from holding a hearing on or about March 25th to remove Mr. Rapetta from the Planning Commission. The court made a decision on that day, and we received the following. Plaintiff Chris Rapetta filed the instant action on February 24th. We were there on March 18th, and the judge ordered that the plaintiff has not shown he is entitled to the extraordinary remedy of superintending control. At the end of the order, it states, "Wherefore, it is hereby ordered that plaintiff is not entitled to an order for superintending control, and the verified complaint is dismissed. This order resolves the last pending claim and closes the case." Several text messages and emails were exchanged between Mr. Rapetta and Mr. Haas, conspiring and directing Mr. Carnes in the days leading up to Mr. Carnes' delivery of the letters to the Planning Commission members on December 10th, 2024. These communications clearly indicate Mr. Rapetta's participation through his text messages with Mr. Haas as follows. 1. Research of Michigan laws that reference removal of Planning Commission members. Mr. Rapetta, quote, "PC letter and legal references just emailed to you," end quote. Number 2, writing and revisions of the letter. Mr. Rapetta, quote, "I agree with you about the directness of the current wording we provided," end quote. And, quote, "Right, unless Greg has taken the bite out of what we submitted to him," end quote. Number 3, suggestion of personalized letters be given rather than a group letter. Quote, "We need to make sure that Greg send a personalized letter to each and not just a group letter," end quote. And lastly, his statement of, quote, "It," referencing the letter, "will need to be on township letterhead and the end quote. Mr. Rapetta did not adhere to the law and necessary processes of the board, and his intentionally reckless actions have had far-reaching effects on the township, its employees, residents, and the planning commissioners. The financial cost thus far is at $3,258.75. In the discussions among and between Mr. Rapetta, Mr. Haas, and Mr. Carnes, they discussed, deliberated, and made a decision while circumventing the OMA, Open Meetings Act. They operated as a public body in their actions, performing a governmental function, ending with all three of them present at the PC meeting when that letter was delivered by Mr. Carnes to the PC members. The OMA requires if you act as a performing body, You must comply with the OMA, which dictates that you encompass a quorum and fulfill meeting notice publications. Mr. Rapetta is not unfamiliar with transparency and the Open Meetings Act, as it is discussed in the trustee's guide that was provided to him on November 20th, 2024, after he took his oath of office. Mr. Rapetta participated in misrepresenting the board in the letter to the planning commissioners. He was aware the township board had no knowledge of the letter. He knew the letter was misleading to the planning commission members. The public hearing that was referenced in the letter, it wasn't scheduled, nor could it have been, due to the publishing notification requirements and the fact that no discussion ever took place at the board table at any of our meetings. The letter from Nick Caruso, Mr. Rapetta's attorney, states, quote, "Should the board nevertheless proceed with removal proceedings, Mr. Rapetta will seek all available legal remedies, including but not limited to an action for superintending control in circuit court for Livingston County," end quote. This letter was threatening, and it was meant to intimidate the board from doing its job and making a decision on whether to hold a public hearing. It is unmistakable in Mr. Rapetta's text to Mr. Carnes that he desired to dismantle the Planning Commission. He stated, quote, "We need a new start on the Planning Commission and not more Cunningham cronies," end quote. It is our duty as a board to take into consideration the Planning Commissioner's request for removal of ex officio Mr. Rapetta, as it is clear he does not wish to work with them.
Are you done?
Yes.
Good evening, members of the board and concerned residents. The purpose of this public hearing is to address the charges of malfeasance and misfeasance against Tyrone Township Planning Commission member Chris Rapetta. At a Tyrone Township Board of Trustees meeting held on February 18th, 2025, the board formally voted to bring these charges forward based on documented actions that reflected a serious breach of public trust and the legal responsibilities of office. This matter is not brought lightly, nor is it political. It is a response to conduct that undermined the integrity of this board, misrepresented the authority of the township, and placed the community at risk, both legally and ethically. Misfeasance is defined as an improper or negligent performance of a lawful act. It is, in this case, Mr. Rapetta, along with board members Dean Haas and Supervisor Greg Carnes, conspired in early days of their term to remove members of the Planning Commission. Within the first few weeks of taking office, they developed a plan and executed it by drafting and delivering of letters accusing the Planning Commission members of nonfeasance. Mr. Rapetta played a key role in the drafting of this letter, which falsely claimed that the Tyrone Township Board was bringing charges against the Planning Commission. This letter was never reviewed, discussed, or approved by the full Township Board. It was sent without a quorum and without proper notification or discussion, clear violations of the Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.263. The letter declared the Tyrone Township Board is charging you with nonfeasance, a statement that is wholly untrue and knowingly misleading. It further stated that the Tyrone Township will be holding a public hearing, which no such hearing had been discussed, scheduled, or approved. These actions demonstrated a deliberate misrepresentation of the board authority and the reckless abandonment of due process. When the rest of the board became aware of the letter, they, or Greg, instructed the Planning Commission to rip it up, recognizing the document as improper, inadequate, and potentially damaging to the township's legal standing. Mr. Rapetta knew the language in the letter was false. He knew that the Planning Commission bylaws contain no attendance requirement, let alone the 80% threshold mentioned. He knew most of the Township Board was unaware of the letter had even been created. and yet he stood by as it was distributed, presented as an official act of the board, official act of this board. Malfeasance is intentionally doing something either legally or morally wrong. Mr. Rapetta acted outside the bounds of his authority by helping to draft, approve, and distribute a fraudulent letter under the false pretense of the board authority. By acting upon that letter, you not only misled public officials, but you also violated the public trust. These actions place the township in legal and ethical risk and constitute a clear abuse of power. They violated not only the Open Meetings Act, but also the basic principles of honesty and integrity. Refusal to accept accountability. Despite being censored by the board of these actions, Mr. Rapetta has refused to accept responsibility. He has taken to social media, defending his actions, suggesting that he had authority to act unilaterally, and accusing the board of wasting taxpayers' dollars for issuing a censor and holding this hearing. Let me be clear, the board had no choice but to act, not to punish but to protect the township, to reaffirm the rule of law, and to make it known to the public that this was not an action of the township board, but of 3 individuals acting outside their authority. This is why the board formally censored Mr. Rapetta on record. Censors are rare, but they are serious. They are issued when behavior is erroneous and that it places the township in legal and reputational jeopardy. I'm going to read a little bit of the censor. The board passed these censors on January 7th, 2025. The actions of Trustee Chris Rapetta, which are inconsistent with the expectations and responsibilities of his office, include working with the Tyrone Township Supervisor Greg Carnes and Trustee Dean Haas to generate a document bearing text that directly suggests that is an official Tyrone Township document approved by the Tyrone Township Board of Trustees, charging certain Tyrone Township Planning Commissioner members with nonfeasance and scheduling a date for a public hearing before the Tyrone Township Board to answer the charge of nonfeasance when there was no public hearing or meeting of the Tyrone Township Board of Trustees to approve charging the Tyrone Township Planning Commission with nonfeasance. Several officers and trustees of the Tyrone Township Board of Trustees were never made aware of this document was being generated. The document was generated without asking for input or opinion of many of the officers and trustees of the Tyrone Township Board of Trustees. The document was generated after meeting, either in person or with electronic communications, with other Board of Trustee members for the purpose of obtaining support from those other trustees and possibly in violation of the Open Meetings Act. There was insignificant time for publication of a notice to the public of a hearing where the Township Planning Commission members would have the opportunity to answer to the charges of nonfeasance. Helping generate the document charging certain Planning Commission members with nonfeasance and the intention of intimidating certain Planning Commission members so that those members would resign their positions on the Planning Commission. Violating his own promise of transparency when he conducted himself as described above. The board provides the censor as a formal reprimand and reminder of the standards expected of all township officials, and notes that further inappropriate conduct may result in additional actions up to and including removal from office as per the applicable laws and regulations. Impact on the Planning Commission. Perhaps the most troubling part of all of this misconduct is its impact on the Planning Commission members. Volunteers who were blindsided by the letter and humiliated in the process. These individuals were accused of wrongdoing without due process, without notice, and without any factual basis. They were embarrassed, hurt, and made to feel that their service to the community was unappreciated and unwanted. These are our neighbors. residents of Tyrone Township who serve, giving their time and expertise out of civic duty. They deserve honesty, they deserve respect, and they didn't get it. I will now read a couple of the letters or statements submitted to the board by the affected Planning Commission members. The first one was from Bill Wood. I am Bill Wood, a longtime township resident, business owner, and member of the Tyrone Township Planning Commission. I am writing today to address the effects of the letter I received in December of 2024, notifying me that I am being charged with nonfeasance and subsequent derogatory, harmful, and untrue remarks made about me at the Tyrone Township Board meeting. The comments are public record and available for everyone to see. The effects cannot be undone. The libel and slander have caused unnecessary stress on me and have damaged my reputation in business relationships and in the community. Negative comments travel much further than positive ones. I have been approached regarding these negative comments at work, at social gathering, and when with family. It is impossible to get away from the stress and negativity even while on vacation. Many ask what is going on with the township and the censors. All this unnecessary stress and wasted time and energy could have been avoided if certain Tyrone Township board members would have checked the facts prior to sending out letters and making slanderous statements at the board meeting. The letter indicated I did not meet the attendance requirements for 2024 calendar year Planning Commission meetings. This cannot be true, since there is no attendance mandate for the Tyrone Township Planning Commission meetings. At a subsequent board meeting, Trustee Rapetta, who is also the ex officio member of the Tyrone Township Planning Commission, stated my attendance was less than 50%, which is not true. Instead of responding to the untrue and negative statements, I asked to meet with Supervisor Carnes to discuss. I explained the situation and how I felt about Chris Rapetta making slanderous statements about me on record with a large audience. Also, he is harming me for his personal gain. It seems that he is attempting to get certain members removed from the Planning Commission. I asked that the libel included in the letter, as well as the slanderous statements, be retracted, and for the apologies. The meeting seemed to go well. Supervisor Carnes advised me that he would look into it. I am disappointed to say that I have not heard back from Supervisor Carnes and have seen no action to correct the issue. In my 50 years I have lived in Tyrone Township, I have not lodged a complaint or shared negativity about the township. The time wasted over the past few months on these issues is a disservice not only to me but to the citizens of Tyrone Township for time wasted on this when it could have been spent being productive on township needs. I am asking for an apology from Chris Rapetta and for him to retract the slanderous statements on record at the next board meeting. I also ask him to be held accountable for his actions, as well as his letter to be retracted. Thank you, Bill Wood. The second letter I'm going to read is from all members. Dear members of Tyrone Township Board, we, the undersigned residents of Tyrone Township, the members of the Planning Commission, write to formally express our deep concern regarding the conduct of ex officio Planning Commission member and Tyrone Township Board member, Chris Rapetta. Given his recent censure by the Township Board, we respectfully request he be removed from his position on the Planning Commission without delay. As you are aware, Mr. Rapetta was censored due to his involvement in a certain dissemination of an unlawful document, drafted in collaboration with Carnes and Haas, containing baseline accusation and of nonfeasance against members of the Planning Commission. This document not only misrepresented the actions of the commission members, but also constituted a flagrant misuse of authority directly undermining public trust in the integrity of our township's governance. The principles of accountability, transparency, and ethical leadership that this board is entrusted to withhold were blatantly disregarded in this act. Beyond the immediate implications of this misconduct, the circulation of such a misleading letter had far-reaching consequences. The reputations of dedicated individuals serving on the Planning Commission have been unfairly tarnished. Local business owners who volunteer their time in service to the township have been subject to undue scrutiny and reputable harm. False accusations, particularly those leveled in an official capacity, carry long-term repercussions that extend beyond the individuals directly named. They erode public confidence in our institutions and create unnecessary division in our community. As residents who value ethical governance and responsible leadership, we believe that maintaining the integrity of the Planning Commission is of paramount importance. The action of Mr. Rapetta have demonstrated a clear departure from the standards of conduct that should be expected of those in public service. Given his recent censure and the nature of his actions, it is evident that his continued presence on the Planning Commission is detrimental to both its function and its credibility. We therefore urge the Tyrone Township Board to take immediate action by initiating formal proceedings for Mr. Rapetta's removal from the Planning Commission, ensuring that our township leadership operates with honesty, accountability, and transparency, and not only a responsibility of this board, but also a fundamental expectation of the residents you serve. If further action or input is required from the Planning Commission, we stand fully prepared to cooperate in any way necessary. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. We trust the Township Board will act in the best interests of Tyrone Township and its residents, reinforcing a collective commitment to the principled leadership and ethical governance. Signed by John Ward, Kevin Ross, Bill Wood, and Garrett Ladd. This public hearing is not an attack. It is a defense of lawful governance, a defense of open and honest public service, a defense of the residents of Tyrone Township. We deserve to know when their elected officials act outside the law and without authority. Let me be clear, the Tyrone Township, the Board of Trustees stand by the February 18th decision to charge Mr. Rapetta with misfeasance and malfeasance, and to censure him for his misconduct. These actions were taken in the public's interest and to preserve the standards of good governance that we all were sworn to uphold. Let me remind you, Chris, that decisions are made at the board table with a quorum in public and on record. You don't get to rewrite the rules. You don't get to act unilaterally. You don't get to misrepresent the township board. You are elected to serve, not deceive. You are not doing what they elected you to do. In closing, as members of this body, it is our duty to act with integrity, transparency, and in the best interest of the community we serve. Unfortunately, it has become clear that Chris Rapetta has failed in this duty. I urge this board and this community to take these charges of misfeasance and malfeasance seriously. We cannot allow this kind of behavior to go unchecked. We must hold our public officials accountable, not just for what they do, but for what they fail to do when integrity is on the line.
I would like to begin my statement with talking a little bit about violations. There's been a lot of question about what are the violations. So first I'd like to say that this is not a criminal trial. Charges of misfeasance and malfeasance can be considered and applied by the local legislative body, that's the Township Board, according to Planning Commission bylaws. This is a process in which the board is afforded by state law to partake when questionable conduct occurs on the Planning Commission. The necessity of violation of particular laws to justify the board's consideration and potential action for removal based on charges of misfeasance and malfeasance is not necessarily required. This has become a legal matter only because Mr. Rapetta filed a lawsuit to stop the lawful process from proceeding. Unlawful violations have occurred and will be further explained, but there does not have to be a law or laws broken in order for the Township Board to determine misfeasance and malfeasance have occurred, and to further consider disciplinary action through the due process of a public hearing and subsequent vote on the removal of an appointee. The Township Board is the enforcement body, responsible for both appointment and removal. The board is within its lawful authority to consider actions and evidence, deliberate, and make a determination regarding conduct. This process is intended to be a check and balance afforded to local municipalities by state law to self-govern in accordance with the Planning Commission bylaws. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the relationship between the Open Meetings Act and cite some case law so that there's clear understanding. In the Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.262, there are several definitions. I'm going to read a few that are applicable. Public body means any state or local legislative or governing body, including a board, commission, etc., that is empowered by state constitution, statute, charter, ordinance, resolution, or rule to exercise governmental authority or perform a governmental or proprietary function. Meeting is defined as the convening of a public body at which a quorum is present for the purpose of deliberating toward or rendering a decision on a public policy. Decision means a determination, action, vote, or disposition upon a motion, a proposal, a recommendation, resolution, order, ordinance, bill, or measure on which a vote by members of a public body is required and by which a public body effectuates or formulates public policy. From Black's Law Dictionary, an industry standard reference, public policy is defined as applied to a statute, regulation, rule of law, course of action, or the like, refers to its probable effect with reference to the social or political well-being of the township. MCL 15.263, Section 3 of the Open Meetings Act requires meetings to be open to the public. It provides in part, all meetings of a public body must be open to the public and must be held in a place available to the general public. Number 2, all decisions of a public body must be made at a meeting open to the public. Number 3, all deliberations of a public body constituting a quorum of its members must take place at a meeting open to the public. Supervisor Carnes, Trustee Haas, and Trustee Rapetta deliberated, made decisions, and acted upon them without a public body called to order or notification given. Additionally, published court opinions demonstrate precedent that a meeting of board members, even though less than a quorum, can be a violation of the OMA. And that's really important because there have been a lot of questions about there was a quorum, there wasn't a quorum, and how does that relate to OMA violations. Booth Newspapers versus University of Michigan Board of Regents. The purpose of the OMA is to promote openness and accountability in government. It is therefore to be interpreted broadly to accomplish this goal. Same court case, quote, and this court has repeatedly held that an OMA violation can be found when sub-quorum groups are intentionally created to deliberate on public policy and avoid the OMA, thereby constituting constructive quorums. Wyoming City Council. According to this court, to accept the City Council's suggestion that a public body can avoid the OMA by deliberately dividing itself into groups of less than a quorum and still deliberate on public policy would circumvent the legislative principles, as well as the overall objective of the OMA to promote openness and accountability in government. Back to Booth Newspapers versus University of Michigan Board of Regents case. The defendant board established sub-quorum committees that engaged in telephone calls and small group meetings. This court found it significant that the acknowledged purpose of these sub-quorum committees was to engage in the same intercommunications that could only have been achieved in a full meeting of the board. According to this court, the sub-quorum groups were utilized or designed to avoid the OMA and therefore constituted a constructive quorum. Therefore, this court held that because the board deliberately divided itself into sub-quorum groups to deliberate on public policy in direct circumvention of the OMA's objective of promoting openness and accountability in government, the OMA applies. In summary, a clear violation of OMA occurred when 3 board members formed a constructive quorum, circumvented the OMA, deliberated public policy, made a determination, acted upon those decisions, and did so in the name of the township board, without the board's knowledge and without a publicly held meeting. Other egregious actions constituting charges of misfeasance and malfeasance. So not necessarily breaking of law, but egregious actions nonetheless. The language of the letter fraudulently misrepresented the township board and its authority in stating, quote, "The township board is charging you with nonfeasance." In deciding upon the language, the township board, it was known, without a doubt it was known, that the township board as a whole knew nothing about it or the charges being made. The letter also stated there would be a public hearing on December 17th. No hearing was ever scheduled or attempted to be scheduled. This was another statement that was known not to be true. The Planning Commission was asked to destroy the letter. This destruction of township property and a legal document, given that Trustee Rapetta was the one that suggested it be on township letterhead. The rest of my statement is sort of a series of rhetorical question and answer that I'm hoping people are thinking carefully about. Was there intent? Without a doubt, there was intent. There's a mountain of evidence revealed through text and email correspondence speaking to intentions of removing and rebuilding the Planning Commission. It's clear who was involved and what they hoped to achieve. The actions taken by Trustee Rapetta were intentional and carefully orchestrated. Consider this. Why didn't Trustees Rapetta and Haas and Supervisor Carnes bring their concerns to the board table by putting the subject on an agenda according to proper processes and board policy? Why was the drafted letter or the suggestion of charges not brought to the board for deliberation, discussion, and decision-making? Why? Because they knew it was wrong. They knew that in all likelihood, the majority of the board would not support the ludicrous notion that charges toward our planning commissioners based on a non-existent attendance standard were the appropriate actions. They knew this because they had been told repeatedly by myself, by Clerk Mogler, by Treasurer Eden, and the township attorney, that they could not lawfully remove appointed officials based on attendance records. There were many ways the board as a whole could have collaboratively solved and addressed Planning Commission concerns. Those avenues were not chosen. Is there any understanding of wrongdoing? Any remorse? On December 11th, they knew they were wrong, as demonstrated in their coordinated efforts to tell the planning commissioners to destroy the letter. They knew they were wrong when they called Clerk Mogler and Treasurer Eden the next day and told them we had a quorum. That was the call made the morning after this letter was delivered to the clerk and the treasurer to claim there was a quorum. By the way, if there had been a quorum, that would have been a direct violation of the Open Meetings Act. because there was no publicly held meeting and no notification given. So when they figured that out, the story changed. They knew they were wrong when they sent identical texts to Trustee Ferguson and I, begging for support after the fact. They knew they were wrong when Trustee Rapetta called Trustee Ferguson suddenly out of the blue and wanted to take him out for dinner so they could talk. The rationalization and justification then set in. The narrative started to change. In the days that followed, a quorum or majority was no longer the defense of choice. Language changed to include, quote, "The Planning Commission attendance has improved. There's more dialogue now," end quote. So now the end justifies the means? Quote, "I was acting as trustee when I collaborated on the letter, not a Planning Commission member," end quote. An ex officio has responsibilities in both roles at all times. You don't get to choose what hat to wear and when to wear them, you wear them both. Quote, "The law allows the supervisor to take this action as a first step in the process. The supervisor has the authority to bring an appointee up on charges. I was helping the supervisor draft a letter on behalf of the board. I had consensus from other trustees," end quote. These are sad attempts to exploit the spirit of the law and the Planning Commission bylaws. It's true, a supervisor could bring concerns to the board table about a Planning Commission member through the proper agenda process, but that never gives him or anyone else permission to state the board made a decision it did not make. There is no situation in which a supervisor or any group of trustees has the right to represent the board's authority without deliberation, a quorum, and a vote at a publicly held meeting. That is precisely why the OMA exists. Quote, "I didn't sign the letter, my role was minimal," end quote. Trustee Rapetta's involvement is crystal clear as evidenced through text and email correspondence and evidenced in the FOIA documentation that's already been read. This started with Trustee Rapetta. The letter was originally drafted by Trustee Rapetta and sent to Trustee Haas and then forward to Supervisor Carnes. Trustee Rapetta did legal research, provided references. He used the word nonfeasance. Trustee Rapetta created an attendance matrix. Trustee Rapetta suggested and followed up on specific, direct language. Trustee Rapetta directed Supervisor Carnes and Trustee Haas to use township letterhead. Trustee Rapetta pointed out that the letters needed to be delivered to individuals, not the group. And Trustee Rapetta confirmed the final copy on December 9th by replying to Greg's text and saying, quote, "looks good to me," end quote. According to their own texts and emails, Trustee Rapetta did everything but sign the letter. Quote, "I'm being targeted. This is political. I'm being persecuted," end quote. No, Trustee Rapetta, you are not being targeted. You are being held accountable for your actions, specifically misrepresenting the board and its authority. Trustee Rapetta, you are not being targeted politically. This is not a political or partisan issue. This situation is not about left and right. It's about right and wrong.
Hey.
The end does not justify the means. Process and law exists for a reason. Using the board's name and authority without permission is not acceptable. Not only is there clearly no understanding or acknowledgement of wrongdoing, there's pride in what has been done and a direct effort to justify and normalize these unlawful and immoral actions. What accountability is and what accountability is not. Accountability means responsibility, taking responsibility for one's actions. This includes acknowledging mistakes and accepting consequences for those actions. A key part of being accountable is recognizing when a mistake has been made and understanding the impact of that mistake. Accountability in this situation would have been acknowledging wrongdoing, apologizing, accepting the board's censure action, and resigning as ex officio to the Planning Commission when repeatedly asked to do so. Accountability is not denial. Accountability is not changing the narrative to protect your own self-interests. Accountability is not manipulating information and stoking division to get people in your corner. Accountability is not suing the township you are elected to serve when you don't like the consequences for your actions. Have these actions actually impacted the Planning Commission, board colleagues, and the community? I have to address this because over and over I've heard from Mr. Carnes that the Planning Commission's great now. Everything's fixed, it's working smoothly, the attendance is great, the dialogue is great, everybody's happy. Directly from the words of the planning commissioners, and the letter has already been read, but I'm going to highlight these statements because they're really important. Your actions put the township in legal jeopardy. The impacts of your actions were far-reaching, individually, socially, and professionally. Your actions were harmful, caused unnecessary stress, and damaged reputations. Your actions eroded public confidence in our institutions and created unnecessary, irreversible divisions. Your actions directly undermined trust in the integrity of our township's government. The principles of accountability, transparency, and ethical leadership that we as a board and planning commission members are entrusted to uphold were blatantly disregarded in this act. It is evident that his, referring to Trustee Rapetta, continued presence on the Planning Commission is detrimental to both its function and credibility. We, the Planning Commission, therefore urge the Township Board to take immediate action by initiating formal proceedings for Mr. Rapetta's removal from the Planning Commission. The impacts were farther reaching. It wasn't just the Planning Commission that was impacted. Impact on our Township Board colleagues. You stole our votes and our voices, using the board's name, authority, and township letterhead to state we made a decision we didn't make is fraudulent. Intentionally bypassing the process of having this discussion at the board table is deceitful and ethically wrong. Trust was not only fractured, it was shattered. To echo the words of the Planning Commission, your actions undermined trust in the integrity of our township's governance, and I would add, it undermined trust in each other as colleagues on both the board and the Planning Commission. The impact on the community. Even more dire than the impact on officials and employees is the impact these actions and those that have followed since then have had on our community. The situation is costing the taxpayers money. It's costing us all so much more. It's costing valuable time and resources, preventing us from the productive work we could be doing collaboratively, and poisoning our community with manufactured division. What can the Township Board do about it? When misconduct occurs, the elected board has exactly two actions, and I've said this before, it has two things the board can do to seek accountability: censure and removal from appointments. All three board members involved were rightfully censured for their egregious actions as members of the Board of Trustees. Additionally, the Township Board is considering tonight whether or not charges of misfeasance and malfeasance are warranted based on Trustee Rapetta's actions in accordance with the Planning Commission's bylaws. Again, this is a lawful process the Township Board has every right to follow in consideration for his removal from his appointment. The consideration for removal is a direct result of his own actions and involvement in this matter. The Township Board, the legislative body for the township, has the authority and the responsibility to ensure accountability for misconduct, and that the appointee to the important role of ex officio to the Planning Commission is able to serve in the best interest of the township, the whole township. 12,000 people, we have that responsibility to make sure that the person in that role is accountable in serving the entire township. In closing, I could spend hours of time refuting spin, false claims, divisive rhetoric, purposeful delays, misinformation, and frivolous lawsuits made by Trustee Rapetta, an official elected to serve this township. The chaos we are all experiencing is intentional distraction from what matters, and it does not deserve my time or yours. Stoking fear and assigning labels. Here are a few examples: liberal, progressive, rhino, mob, regime. Assigning those labels to perceived enemies in moments of conflict is called political manipulation. Specifically, polarization, and it's a common tactic for manufacturing division. This divisive rhetoric exploits partisan loyalty and breeds hostility in the form of us versus them. Residents and fellow board members, I'm calling on you to see through the distractions and refuse to be divided. Our community is better than this, and we will find a way to overcome these challenges. I'd like the people of this community to know there is no such thing as township versus residents, nor should there be, ever. It is not what this is about. We all live in the same community. We are neighbors. There is no mob. There is no regime. No political motivation behind the way the board has addressed this matter. Residents, officials, and employees alike are exhausted from the perpetual state of conflict. And it's not just this. It's not just from this. It's been going on for almost 5 years now. And it's gotten worse. Intentional delays, denial, lawsuits, and refusal to accept responsibility for one's own actions are fueling the fire of longevity in this matter. It needs to stop. It needs to stop with owning mistakes, learning from them, and accepting the consequences. That's how this community moves forward, and that should have been the case months ago. Trustee Rapetta is not working effectively with the members of the Planning Commission or the Township Board members to obtain correct information about the work that is being done. He is not working to build relationships or effectively communicating with Township colleagues to work toward a stronger community. That is not happening. It is the responsibility of every trustee to act in the best interest of the Township, setting the precedent that private small group deliberations and decision-making on behalf of the Township Board without the board's consent is reckless and dangerous. These actions cannot be ignored, and the Planning Commission's request for removal deserves serious consideration. The majority of this board has held to the lawful processes at its disposal and its commitment to accountability, while simultaneously responding to an onslaught of retaliatory maneuvers and contrived chaos. I remain steadfast and focused on holding those responsible for misconduct accountable according to the processes afforded by the law to the Township. Thank you.
Guess it's my turn now. First, I'd like to say that it's also great the way that they put this together and conveniently left out certain snippets and certain information. This isn't all the FOIA information, only the FOIA information they wanted you to see. Okay? For instance, there was a statement just made that Mr. Rapetta came up with the reason for the removal, which was nonfeasance, malfeasance, or misfeasance, which if they would have posted the email between Greg Carnes, Herm Ferguson, and myself, where Herm Ferguson actually, if you give me just a second, I'll get the exact, I'll get it up here for you. He is the one that went to Judge Godola.
Text message, not email.
Whichever. Text message, fine, text message, and gave us the format for which this should be done, and agreed that based on the information that Herm gave him and then passed on to Greg and I, that would be the format to follow. Again, preference to the whole thing. Okay? So that's where that came from. We didn't go looking for it. Herm offered it up to Greg, myself, openly. Also, I'd like to bring forward a little email here from Miss Aradil, New Jersey, called Thinking Forward. I'll go ahead and you can pass this down. And this was dated 11/18/24, 2 days before our appointment. And if you like, I got extra copies for everybody else to like it. And it just basically says, "Good evening, gentlemen," and it's to Dean Haas, Chris Rapetta, and Herm Ferguson, and Greg Carnes. I want to share a few final thoughts in a group email, since we are, after Wednesday, we'll have to abide by the Open Meeting Acts, including email, text, etc. I'm still not clear what the exact plan or timeline is coming weeks and months, but I do want to reiterate the things that are important to address promptly. And one matter of urgency we all agree upon is shoring up the Planning Commission. Her first and number one item that she believes we need to work on, okay? And she goes on to, along with that, there are important issues among appointment of the liaison to the board, revise of the RE, there's some other things, Michigan Constitution. What goes down further, other priorities we discussed, including interviewing a new township attorney, a new township engineer, soliciting bids for strategic planning consultant, all extreme ordinance items to consider. So this was a letter that she sent on the 18th. So was quite aware of the fact that we needed to shore up that. And then I'm going to read another one here that I'll hand down. It's a text message thread. The person that forwarded this to me would prefer not to be mentioned this time. But it's from, and again, I got copies and want some, from Miss Sarah Dolman, Jersey. "I hope Greg can talk to each of them, express the expectations and time commitment needed, and some will not want to stay. Bill Wood and I think Kevin Ross are up in August. Not soon enough is the response." And the response to that was, "Agree wholeheartedly." That again was Ms. Dolman, Jersey, in response to our planning commission in removing people.
No, it wasn't
So-
about removing people. It was about concerns about the planning commission.
I'm hoping Greg can talk to each of them. Bill Wood and I think Kevin Ross are up in August. Not soon enough.
That's
I wholly agree.
their reappointment
Yeah,
is in
no.
August, Dean.
Yeah.
It says nothing about
No.
removal.
They're up in August. Didn't say they were
Excuse me,
appointed.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay.
So, that's number
Let's
two.
stop here.
That's
That
number two.
Some of this does not
It does.
even apply
It
to
does.
Mr. Rapetta.
You know something?
You're dragging other people
You
in.
used the censure for your basis for this removal. And you've used this, him and myself and
Okay, go
Mr.
ahead.
Carnes were the
Go
ones that
ahead.
were involved in this.
Go ahead,
We
Dean.
took our
Be quiet
direction
out there.
from other people.
Go
That's
ahead,
my
Dean.
point.
I said, go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. You know, we talked about accountability. One of the statements they made was that we conspired to create a letter. Well, let's talk about what Miss Sarah Dolman, Jersey did when she went to Chuck and created a censure
Let's talk about
letter and
do
charges
that.
before it was ever brought in front of the board.
Let's be respectful.
Is that not the same thing? She,
It is not.
without a board approval, without board discussion, without any discussion of censure, this was prior to any discussion of censure, went to our attorney and created this letter of censure with charges already. The board never had a meeting about that. That was her independently going to our attorney. If she did have approval for the board, then that's a quorum and that's a violation of OMA. She then went one step further and took information that was only her information, that she could only have as a board member, and went public with it, which is a big misrepresentation of our township. Prior to the letter or the talk of censure, she went publicly to a radio station and told them about members being censured in Tyrone Township. Is that transparency? Is that the right thing for the township? No, it's not. That should have never, if she wanted to go after, then she had every right as a member. But she took information only available to a board member at that time.
It's not
And went
true.
public with it. Not only with
Mr.
WHMI,
Supervisor, point of order, Ms. Dolman, Jersey is not the one that the public hearing is regarding.
It's quiet. Quiet.
I'll get to my point, Mr. Cunningham,
Please get to your point, Dean.
okay? Again, I get to another
It's
point,
quiet out there.
you know?
Respectful. Let me
I've
finish.
got at least 4, and probably closer to 7, OMA violations by other board members, where they went into closed session hearings without properly just telling the audience, or excuse me, the residents, what they were going into closed meeting for. That's a direct violation.
Dean.
Not in the meeting minutes. I'll get to it.
All right.
You know, you didn't stop anybody else from talking. I'm not gonna stop you guys as much time as everybody
Dean,
else.
stop!
So, my point is, we hold certain people to a certain standard in this board. Sarah Dole in Jersey can do whatever she wants. Other people can do whatever they want and violate OMA rules.
Come on.
And violate other things, and they're not called out for it. They're not held accountable. She talks about holding everybody equally accountable. If that's the case, she should be getting censured. The other board members should be censured. But bottom line is that's a waste of our township time, and so is this hearing.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other trustee?
yeah, Dean, you
Then we'll
brought
have-
up the fact
Hold
about.
on, wait, okay.
Let's just start? No.
Yeah, I think Chris gets to talk first, doesn't he, before there's
Okay.
rebuttal?
All right.
Because we had our
Yeah.
turn.
Is that it?
We're gonna move to 2B, introduction of evidence from trustee Rapetta. 2B.
And then we're-
You gonna see a movie? While he's setting up, Greg, I'm going to the bathroom.
We could. Chris, while you're setting up, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess. Okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
I thought you were doing something. I just seen you on my curtain. I'm like, what is he doing over there now?
I'm gonna call it back to order at 22. Say 20. 8:22.
Yeah, I can feel the breeze sometimes.
Did you turn the air on? Did you turn the air on? I didn't hear you.
We should correct that one, yes. I thought I felt some breeze, but now I don't. It's cold.
I'm freezing. I don't know that we want to open the door. The door open. It's cold. Please, don't make us freeze.
Hey, come down to my office, they say the same thing.
They're all hot.
I'm comfortable, it's cold.
22. 8:22, we're gonna have the meeting come back to order.
Back there. I think Terry did right there. No, the one back there. Oh, okay. Too warm. Too warm.
You get halfway back there, you can pick it so hard. I think Terry turned her ear on there. All right, it's time. Yeah.
All right, Sarah, we're gonna call the meeting back. All right.
Go ahead. I'll answer it. It might not be good.
I think I already know anyway.
Okay, it's quiet. We're gonna start back up here with, under the public hearing. Item 2, subtitle B there, introduction of evidence by Trustee Rapetta. So Chris,
Yeah, thanks.
you got the floor.
Can you hear me okay? I wanted to first ask, because the charges don't state whether you're charging me as a trustee or as a planning commissioner.
You're both. You are both.
Well, it doesn't state anything about which role. I'm asking specifically what the charges against me in my role of trustee or my role of planning commissioner.
That's the only thing you can, that's the only one that allows for it.
Planning Commission.
It's the planning commissioner.
I think the
Ex
attorney should
officio.
answer that.
Ask the attorney.
He's asking if the charges against him are as a planning commissioner or a trustee.
Into the mic, please.
He's asking
Thank you.
if the charges against him are as a trustee or a planning commissioner.
The charges are against him, actually with both of his hats, as trustee and as a planning commission member. He's both at the same time, all of the time. However, under the statute, the only actions that this board can take is against him as the planning commission ex officio.
Thank you for the clarification. I'll begin. Good evening. My name is Chris Rapetta. I'm a board trustee of Tyrone Township in Livingston County, Michigan. I am also appointed as ex officio member of the Planning Commission by unanimous vote by this board. I'm a resident of this community, a father, a husband, a Christian, and I'm also a proud American. I want to start by reviewing my timeline of events, which I have up on the screen. Then I will read my own sworn affidavit and finally provide a summary. So looking up at the screen, you can see my timeline events prior to November 20th, swearing in. As we pointed out, we've all been in contact with each other, Greg, Dean, Herm, Sarah, and I specifically. I also have identified problems, agreements that we would need to find solutions for, and efforts would be made accordingly as we approach taking office. And that was stuff we all ran on. November 20th, we all were sworn in. We inherited lawsuits like the MMMA ordinances that are out of date, putting our township at risk, master plan, which still doesn't address vital issues, in my opinion, renewable energy ordinances that I've spoke about in past board meetings that need improvement. On November 25th, me, Greg, and the township attorney met, and we talked to him for counsel on the planning commission issues. Nonfeasance would be the correct cause when talking about attendance, and appearance at a public hearing after a letter received in writing was a requirement, and these are stated in the MP, the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. December 3rd, official board meeting was first. I suggested for agenda items were denied. So the accusation by Trustee Dolman Jersey that I should have brought these things before the board, that's exactly what I was trying to do, was to bring issues to the board for discussion at that first board meeting. I was appointed at that same board meeting as ex officio member to the Planning Commission by the board's unanimous vote. December 5th, I drafted the template letter as shown in the FOIA. Never denied that. I absolutely provided the draft information to Supervisor Carnes and Trustee Dean Haas, as was shown. and regarding the Planning Commission attendance issues. December 10th, Supervisor Carnes delivers his own revised letter to the Planning Commission after the Planning Commission meeting adjourns. And yes, I was there because that was my first Planning Commission meeting, and I was heading out of the room at the time. But yes, I was there. December 11th, Supervisor Carnes rescinds the letter, the letters or sometime thereafter given to the Planning Commissioners. December 17th, at the board meeting, the Planning Commission expresses concerns over the letters and asks for my removal. They claim professional and personal harm. December 18th, the FOIA requests begin. Not dates showing here, but that's when they began, from ex-Supervisor Cunningham and eventually by current Planning Commissioner Kevin Ross. I would like to say I don't know of a single person who gets into politics that doesn't understand what FOIA is, and that information that people communicate with each other is available for public record visibility and scrutiny. We all know that, and that's one of the greatest things we have to us as a community, as residents, and as people on the board. January 2nd, an email was sent to the subscriber list announcing upcoming board agenda. This happened on a Thursday, just noting that that usually didn't happen until a lot later than that, but that's okay. January 2nd, we had censure resolutions delivered to in the packet for Dean, Chris, and Dean, Greg, and myself before the board had ever discussed it or voted on it publicly. And the censure resolutions were already written as guilty, convicted, whatever you want to call it. They weren't letters for discussion, they were guilty. That's what we were going to vote on, so there was large intent. That's important. It's an important part of the process because this is exactly one of the issues that we have with double standards here that we have to address. On January 7th, I attempted to have the censure resolutions removed from the agenda because of the issues during that board meeting that I pointed out, that the township board reads the pre-written censures, very little discussion, and gets passed for motion 4-3. So we're censured. No problem there, understanding that. January 16th, as you mentioned, my attorney for Dean and I, Nick Curcio, sent a letter to the township refuting the censures and warning against the proceedings with a planning commission removal. February 18th, I motioned to rescind the censures at that meeting. The motion fails. The board votes to pursue charges of malfeasance and misfeasance with a public hearing to be scheduled when I returned from being gone. On the 24th, I filed a lawsuit in Livingston County Circuit Court seeking superintending control to stop the hearing. March 18th, after the court hearing, the judge requested it was premature, but doesn't find fault, just that it was premature. The judge also said that you omitted saying is that I could return if removed from the Planning Commission. The public hearing is allowed to proceed, and that's where we are today. The board officially set the public hearing notice. The Planning Commission meeting and public hearing synopsis finalized during this agenda packet on April 8th. And in the meantime, as you all have eloquently pointed out, there's been a lot of issues and things of that nature accusing me of these wrongdoings. And not one item of work has not proceeded or been completed in either the board or the Planning Commission as a result of any of this. So I think it's a mischaracterization at best that we passed a budget. Of course, I was gone on the day you passed the budget. We passed budget amendments. The business of this township has continued to go on. And the Planning Commission, even according to a number of very outspoken residents, has commented in multiple meetings that things have improved with attendance, with engagement, and so on. And here we are at the Planning Commission. So that ends my timeline. The next part I said I would address is my affidavit, so I'm going to stand up for a moment and hand this out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You look good. All right. I'm going to got the slide presentation for this. Let me switch over to that one. And then I'll continue the reading of my affidavit. I would like to point out, let me get this in slide mode, thank you. I just handed out my affidavit. This affidavit is my sworn statement that I'm making, that I will swear into a court of law if presented with that opportunity. So it's been notarized and whatnot. Excuse me, I'm going to grab my drink. Okay. Number one, I'm a resident of Tyrone Township. I was elected as trustee on the Tyrone Township Board of Trustees during the November 2024 election. Shortly thereafter, on December 3rd, 2024, I was appointed to serve as an ex officio member of the Tyrone Township Planning Commission. Number two, before running for the Board of Trustees, I regularly attended meetings of the Planning Commission as a private citizen. As I did so, it became apparent to me that certain Planning Commission commissioners routinely missed meetings without any public explanation of why they were unable to attend. Number three, after I was elected, I discussed my concerns about the Planning Commissioner attendance with fellow trustee Dean Haas, who in turn discussed the issue in text messages with another fellow trustee, Herman Ferguson. My understanding is that Mr. Ferguson's friend, former Genesee County District Court Judge John Godola, told Mr. Ferguson that repeated absences from the meeting could constitute grounds for the Board of Trustees to remove a planning commissioner under the terms of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, or MPEA. Relevant text messages between Mr. Haas and Mr. Ferguson are attached as Exhibit A to this affidavit. And this is what the Exhibit A looks like up on the screen or in your packet.
Can you go back one, please?
Sure.
Oh, it's okay.
These are all in your packet too, sir.
Sorry, I missed that.
So-
I was a page behind.
I just sort of inserted them here during the dialogue where they appeared. Number four, I also conducted my own review of the MPEA, Michigan Planning Enabling Act, as well as the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, and came to the same conclusion as Judge Godola. My conclusion was based on the fact that those statutes imposed a number of duties on the planning commissioners: master planning, recommending zoning ordinance amendments, approving site plans, etc., that can only be satisfied when the planning commissioner is physically present at the planning commission meetings. I also came to understand through my review of the MPEA that the process by which the Board of Trustees has the authority to remove planning commissioner is to hold a public hearing after issuing written charges, confirmed by our 25th of November meeting with our township attorney. Number five, Based on that understanding, I undertook a review of the 2024 Planning Commission meetings, which indicated that after reviewing all the meeting minutes, the meeting minutes that I'm specifically saying, indicated that 5 of the 7 current planning commissioners attended less than 80% of the Planning Commission meetings in 2024. Indeed, the records indicated that some planning commissioners attended as little as 50% of the Planning Commission's meetings. The chart attached as Exhibit B to this affidavit shows the attendance percentages for each planning commissioner and was compiled using official meeting minutes. And it's on 2 slides because the first one was in an email that printed only part of it. And I'll put the full one up here in Exhibit B, which was also, all this information was included in the FOIA, the important FOIAs that were made. So feel free to check out the FOIA information. Okay, moving ahead. Number 6, I then drafted a template letter that could be used to charge the offending planning commissioners with nonfeasance in office and notify them of required removal hearing. That template letter read as follows. To name, Tyrone Township Planning Commission. Due to your attendance during the calendar year 2024, you have attended less than 80% of held meetings, and as a result, we are bringing you up on charges of nonfeasance. We will hold a public hearing where you will be able to defend yourself for possible removal from your appointment. If you do not show up for this meeting, date to be determined, then the Tyrone Township Board will notify you of our decision regarding your appointment after the meeting is held. Greg Carnes, Tyrone Township Supervisor. That was the draft letter that I included. Number 7, I specifically drafted the letter to be addressed from Supervisor Greg Carnes because I understood that he has the authority under the Michigan Planning Enabling Act to bring charges on behalf of the Board of Trustees. On December 5th, on December 5th, 2024, I emailed the template letter to Mr. Haas and Mr. Carnes for review. A copy of the transmission email is attached as Exhibit C to this affidavit. I know you guys can't read that in the back, but you guys have it in your packet information, and you've seen it and referred to it when you were referring to through your discussion. Number 9, Mr. Carnes subsequently revised the draft letter I had sent him. On December 9th, 2024, he sent me a text message saying, I emailed my letter to the PC members, look good. A printout of this text message is attached as Exhibit D to this affidavit. Again, all things contained in the FOIA documents. Number 10, after receiving the text message, I opened my email, quickly reviewed the revised letter that Mr. Carnes had sent to me. A complete copy of Mr. Carnes' revised draft letter is attached as Exhibit E. Garrett Ladd, Tyrone Township, or Tyrone Planning Commission. Your attendance record during the 2024 calendar year at Planning Commission meetings is less than 80% of held meetings. As a result of this Township Board, the Township Board is charging you with nonfeasance. The Township Board will hold a public hearing, line item on the agenda of the December 17th, 2024 at 7 p.m. meeting, and your attendance is requested so that you can explain your position. Thank you, Greg Carnes, Tyrone Township Supervisor. Number 11, along with other charges, the revised draft states, the Township Board is charging you with nonfeasance. This phrase was not included in my original draft, as I read. It did not strike me as problematic, however, because that as I assumed that Mr. Carnes had made his revisions based on his understanding of the statutory authority as Township Supervisor. Number 11, continued. Accordingly, I responded to Mr. Carnes' text messages by stating, "Looks good to me, thanks." See Exhibit D. Here's Exhibit D. Number 12, Mr. Carnes delivered his finalized letters on December 10th, 2024, after the conclusion of the Planning Commission meeting. A copy of one of the final letters is attached as Exhibit F. My name does not appear on the letters. Mr. Carnes delivered the letters, delivered them to the various planning commissioners, and I was leaving the meeting as Mr. Carnes delivered them, which is different than characterizing them that we all stood there and delivered them together somehow. Number 12 continued. Mr. Carnes rescinded the letters shortly after delivering them. No removal hearings were ever held. Number 13, to this day, I do not believe that I did anything inappropriate during the episode described above. My actions were motivated by legitimate concerns that certain planning commissioners were not fulfilling their statutory responsibilities to attend meetings and decide on matters presented to the commission. They were also based on my understanding that Mr. Carnes, as Township Supervisor, is authorized to take certain actions on behalf of the Township Board. To this day, no one has presented me with any statute, case law, or other legal authority indicating that the Township Supervisor lacks the authority to bring removal charges against planning commissioners, or that such charges can only be brought by a majority vote of the Township Board. Further, no one has presented me with any legal authority indicating that chronic absence from the Planning Commission meetings does not rise to the level of nonfeasance, as a term is used in the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. I have personal knowledge that the above statements are true and correct and would so testify if called as a witness in a court proceeding. And your copies have signed and notarized by me. In summary, allegations against me relate solely to actions allegedly taken in my capacity as a trustee on the Township Board, not in my role as an ex officio member of the Planning Commission. This was also confirmed by Trustee Dolman Jersey when she was talking about that we don't have the authority as a board outside of the OMA. Everything about the discussions were my actions regarding the censure as a board member, not as a planning commission member. At most, the Michigan Planning Enabling Act indicates that the removal of a planning commissioner must be based on misfeasance, malfeasance, or nonfeasance in office. And as I clarified, and our Township attorney confirmed that these charges are brought against me of misfeasance and malfeasance as a planning commissioner, and all of the evidence that you have presented is me as a trustee board member, specifically regarding to the Office of Planning Commissioner, not board trustee. At most, the allegations against me reflect a good faith disagreement about the procedures for addressing attendance issues, at most. A matter that is wholly insufficient to justify removal under the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. To this day, no one has presented me with any statute, case law, or other legal authority indicating that the Township Supervisor lacks the authority to bring removal charges against the planning commissioners, or that such charges can only be brought by a majority vote of the Township Board. I realize I'm repeating that. Further, no one has presented me with any legal authority indicating that chronic absence from Planning Commission meetings does not rise to the level of nonfeasance, as a term is used in the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. Finally, there's no evidence that the Planning Commission meetings have been adversely impacted by the supervisor's letters. To the contrary, they have improved in attendance, preparedness for the meetings, engagement in the discussions of the commission, and meeting cancellations are at an all-time low. They were quite high prior to this. In addition, there's been no noticeable impact to any dialogue with me during the meetings. You can review every tape, and including the last Planning Commission meeting held last week. You will see good dialogue between Planning Commission members, which is what we expect to see. And that's what the residents expect to see. Noticeable by resident comments from the first board meeting as well, or Planning Commission meeting as well. This would indicate we're working well together in spite of the issues addressed here and corrections taken by each of the planning commissioners to date. I ran for trustee to represent the people. I was appointed by the board to the Planning Commission to raise the level of performance and quality based on my skills and experience. You all felt that I had the skills and experience to do that. I've stayed in this seat through enormous pressure because I still believe in that mission. And I believe we're stronger when elected and appointed officials are allowed to ask tough questions, raise concerns, and work transparently within the law, lawfully, even if that makes people uncomfortable. That's what the residents expect, and that's what I bring to each and every meeting. That's not something that should be punished. That's what public service is supposed to be. Thank you.
I have a question for you, Chris. Where did the 80% attendance requirement come from?
We felt that was a good watermark for attendance.
You meaning who?
Me and Greg and Dean. We understand there is no attendance threshold with regard to percentage of attendance.
Nothing in their bylaws that states?
The bylaws
requirement.
do not state attendance percentages, but attendance at the Planning Commission meetings is a statutory responsibility under the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. For each planning commissioner, and even officers are held to a higher standard because the bylaws of our Planning Commission bylaws have a burden of additional responsibilities that the chairman, vice chairman, and secretary also have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris, I have a question. How many planning commission meetings did you attend between the time this letter started and the time it was actually distributed to the board?
To the Planning Commission?
Yes. How many
Yeah.
times were you doing a planning commission?
That
meeting?
was the first Planning Commission meeting I attended.
So you'd never attended a meeting
Not prior to that.
prior to the day they received the letter?
You mean attended as the ex?
He's
not attended
as a
Okay.
member
No.
of the board.
Okay.
Yeah,
One
that was-
meeting, he attended one meeting. The letter was received at the end of the meeting. He attended the meeting during.
that's what he
So the
stated.
correct answer is
That
one
was his first meeting. That's what he's responding.
Are there other questions for me?
Yes.
Leave me alone.
May I ask a question?
What's going on?
He keeps coughing in my hair and keeps bugging me.
I'm going to ask you both to leave once. The next time, you're out. Both of you. Both of you, you're going home. Thank you. All right.
When the attendance matrix was put together, did that include attendance of held meeting? I know it stated held meetings, but did that include regular meetings, workshops, and subcommittee meetings, or how was that calculated?
Well, I asked the planning director for subcommittee meeting minutes, and he indicated to me in a conversation that there weren't any. I asked, these did not include any meetings that were canceled. Held meetings simply means meetings that we had and held where minutes were generated that showed the attendance records.
So regular and workshops, right?
Correct.
But not subcommittee time that the planning commissioners put in.
That's correct. In the year of 2024, up to the time in November when we had data available. I had data available.
I just want to point out too that picking a time randomly out of the sky to assess someone's attendance that is not a set window of time is really unfair, because we have members of this new board that wouldn't meet that bar if we just pick a day and say, we're going to look at your attendance since you've been elected, let's say, and calculate the percentage. It wouldn't meet the 80% bar.
Again, the importance is the statutory responsibilities to to attend the meetings and to be able to vote, to be able to participate in discussions. One example would be 2 years to write a master plan. I know it's a long process, but perhaps if we didn't have as many meeting cancellations and other things, that could have gone quicker, in my opinion.
Chris, my understanding is that you used a 1 year period. You didn't say from, I'm going to take 6 months, I'm going to take 3 months. You took
No,
a
I
full
took
year.
a year, which ended up being 11 months, because it was, the time I ran it was November, the end of, beginning of December.
So we really don't know what this board's attendance would be for the
I
year.
can certainly
This
run it
week.
for 3 years if it would help this board. Be glad to do that.
That discussion should have happened before any charges were made.
Are we all set?
Is that it on the questions?
I believe that would be 2C, the trustee's rebuttal. Are you all set? Okay.
I have some things to say. I definitely have some things to say.
On trustee rebuttal?
Yeah.
Okay.
First of all, when we're talking about bringing agenda items to the table, there's no arguing that you and Dean both at that first meeting wanted to add things to the agenda. Dean requested a review of the planning department in that meeting. The clarification in my statement that maybe you missed was the proper process and the documentation. And I tried to explain this to you directly at the conclusion of that December 3rd meeting, and I sent an email the day after to you and Dean both, explaining that you can't come to the board table and try to add 15 things without any documentation in the packet, and that's for 2 reasons. One, the board doesn't have time to adequately prepare for those discussions, and neither does the public. And some of those items that you wanted to add were really big, some of them important. So I don't disagree that they were worthy of discussion. It was the process and how you brought it to the board table. In my opinion, for whatever that's worth,
Hey.
it needed to be something that you build a relationship with these people, all of them, not just 1 or 2 of them. And when you want something on the agenda that's important to you, you work with the 3 people that are in the office in separate conversations, and you provide the documentation, and that's how things come to the table. So I needed to say that. And also, regarding the way the censures were drafted, I need to address this because it's been said several times, okay? When the subject of misconduct comes up, you know, every person on this board is having conversations with various other members, with the township attorney, trying to figure out what are our options. How can this be addressed? I was not the only one corresponding with our attorney
Stop.
about what our options were. Mr. Carnes was well aware that censures were coming in some form to be considered at the board table. The difference is, you know, I have the right as a board member to correspond with the attorney and ask his advice. If a resolution is drafted, it's included in the board packet, and it is brought to the board table for deliberation, discussion, and a vote, that is not a violation of the OMA. This board could have looked at that draft and decided to vote it down. That's the
Let's
difference.
be quiet out there.
That is the difference. Nobody brought this letter
Zip it.
that went to the planning commission. Nobody brought that letter to the board table. That's the difference. Regarding the media, I'm going to correct Dean's statement. I did comment about the situation in the censures. I commented on a publicly published board packet. It was not insider information that I had that I shared. The packet had been posted, and I commented according to what I felt about the situation. That's my personal opinion, and I have freedom of speech and the right to do so. Regarding the suggestion that somehow I was part of this plan, you know, there is nothing new suggesting that I had concerns about the planning commission. The planning commissioners are well aware of that. I did have concerns. There are a lot of things I had concerns for. That's why I ran for office. But I assumed that those concerns would be addressed appropriately and through the proper processes after we were sworn in. I knew nothing about a letter until 15 minutes before it was delivered. I called Jennifer and Pam that night and let them know what was happening. I talked to Greg the next morning, found out charges were leveled, and I didn't even find out that the township board was implicated until Jennifer told me that afternoon. So yes, you know, I did have concerns about the planning commission. When you come into office, you have a lot to learn, folks. You know?
Are you addressing me, or are you addressing the public?
I guess both, because it's my statement.
Okay.
Hey,
There's a lot to learn, and I've learned a lot about the processes and the law. And I guess I'll leave it at that.
we all set?
I have one more statement. While I think maybe the intentions were good, I think the way in which it was done is what the problem is. And you were part of that implementation, that letter writing, that decisions were made between the three of you. That's all.
Does that, Jennifer, could align with what Sarah was just saying about how we all have conversations with each other and aligning with each other on ideas and talking to each other individually and all of those things? Is that in alignment then with what she said?
Well, I don't
That's
know
what
if we're
we-
in line. We're all sitting on a board.
Right.
We're supposed to be doing the work for the people. The people vote us in to do things on behalf of 12,000 people. We have to be able to sit up here on a board and make decisions for the benefit of all people. I have said it numerous times in meetings, you have to put your personal feelings aside. When I vote for the people, the way the people would want me to vote, not necessarily the way I think things should be done. And I think that's where the mistake was. You guys had an idea way before you even took office. Well, you were probably elected officially in August. Before you were sworn in November, you guys had already had this process of what you were doing. That's wrong.
So do you not see the same thing going on with Dean and Greg and I with what Sarah described as all board members are going to have these discussions? You don't see the
We all
correlation?
have to have discussions. Herman comes into this office here, he talks to all of us. Sarah does the same. I expected you and Dean to come in and have conversations. My door is always open. I am here every single day. Anybody can walk in my door and sit down and have a conversation. Many residents do it.
Sure.
I think
And
what
that's
Chris's
where
point
what's
is, though,
missing.
is, what you said is, what Sarah said was, she had a conversation with the attorney, so did, say, Herm, and so did somebody else, and you guys all came up with a decision to create Central. Isn't that exactly what we did?
We didn't make a decision.
You did.
No, we
Somebody
didn't.
did, because the letter was created.
No, you do that to
The
be.
letter was created. Who made that decision then?
Mr. Carn,
To go
It's not a
to,
decision.
Supervisor,
Yes.
I think the discussions between the members is probably more appropriate later in the meeting.
Right. I think we need to, yeah. I think we need to
think
keep
you're
this moving on, otherwise we'll be here all night. So, the rebuttal, are we done with the
Yes.
trustee
Yes.
rebuttal?
Everything?
That's fine. Yep.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Then let's
Okay.
move on to number 3, and we will listen to
Township special counsel.
Special Counsel John Galooly.
Good evening, everyone.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm not going to take much of your time. Can you hear me okay?
You need to speak in the mic so that the people can, yeah, there you go.
See if it's on.
Yep, it's on.
Hello?
Hear 'em.
we have people watching on YouTube. so
Understood,
they
sir.
have to have a mic.
I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
My name's John Galooly. I was brought in to defend Tyrone Township in litigation in Livingston County Circuit Court. I've got more than 3 decades of defending the interests of cities, townships, counties, judges in Michigan and beyond. And I can tell you, I had hoped it wouldn't come to this evening. I had hoped it would not come to litigation. And I hope whatever happens tonight, because I don't have a vote, I would not suggest how anybody should vote. But I'll tell you, I hope that people, whatever way the vote goes, and I won't even be here for it when it comes up in new business, accepts the vote, moves on, and puts this issue behind each and every one of you, to tell you the truth. Because I can tell you, I've lectured on numerous occasions on behalf of the Michigan Municipal League and others around the state to defy the townships, cities regarding the Freedom of Information Act and the Open Meetings Act. In fact, I even did a little work for Tyrone Township maybe 15, 20 years ago. And I can tell you just really quickly, a lot of reference was made about statutory, how we have to abide by the statute, and how the supervisor has authority under the Township Enabling Act. I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, there have been more violations of the Open Meetings Act admitted to tonight than you can shake a stinking stick at. The Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act were both enacted in the wake of Watergate in 1972, so that democracy, this is where it should happen. This is where it should happen. A lawsuit should not suggest, in my humble opinion, that in a letter sent out, that we're going to bring you up on charges of nonfeasance and misfeasance for failing to attend meetings, and then file a lawsuit and say you can't do it. I don't want to have a public hearing. The Open Meetings Act requires, if you are deliberating toward or rendering a decision on public policy, that's the definition, ladies and gentlemen. You have got to all be here in front of you so that you can hear what's going on. And look, when new regimes come in or officials, you might not like what Cunningham did. I get it. And changes are going to be made, right? That's okay. That's okay. But to go on Facebook and make snide remarks when you're passing council table, even this evening, I got to tell you, it's got to stop. Because the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act, you know what gets more people in trouble and how the tune has changed in this case? These devices right here, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, quiet.
And if you don't think, and I know I represent law enforcement across the state in more cases than any other attorney in the state, everyone, and they'll tell you, they assume, and they're wearing body cams, that everything they do is being watched or videotaped by somebody, and I suggest to you that the tone of this case has changed since somebody did a Freedom of Information Act request, and we have trustees going back and forth about now admittedly creating a standard whereby attendance is mandated, okay? A threshold that's not even in your bylaws to remove somebody and say a public hearing is going to take place. And I just want to read you Open Meetings Act. If there's a quorum present or you're deliberating toward or rendering a decision on public policy, they've got to do it in front of you. And everything that's on these cell phones that they say, it's dangerous. Cell phones didn't just bring down the mayor of Detroit, Kwame Kilpatrick. Remember that when somebody got a hold of his cell phones? Every one of your devices that you do is subject to FOIA, and the FOIAs come from within, ladies and gentlemen. They come from within. And they're good exercises as to why you don't put things in writing to 3 or 4 people. It's because it's got to be done in front of you. If you don't like why people aren't showing up for commission meetings, you put it on the agenda, you insist on it, and you vote on it. But what I suggest to you that you don't do is quote affidavit number 6. I drafted a template letter that could be used to charge the offending planning commissions with nonfeasance in office. Quote, due to your attendance during calendar year 2024, you have attended less than 80% of board meetings, and as a result, quote within the quote, we are bringing you up on charges. Who's we? The township board. Remember, it went out on stationery, and now it's used as a defense. Well, I knew it. Hogwash. You can't speak for the board unless the board all votes to do the same thing. I don't care if it's a 5-4 vote or a 4-3 vote. It's got to be done in public in front of you so that you can hear the deliberations and you can speak in public comment just like you're able to do in a few minutes, okay, and express succinctly why you like the process or don't like the process. Because here's what it all boils down to, ladies and gentlemen. FOIA requires it. Open meetings. It's not about snide comments about Facebook or portraying yourself as a Bible-thumping so-and-so. It's not about that. Or making snide comments to the lawyer when you're walking by. Or after you lose a hearing in circuit court, making snide comments about what the person's wearing. It's about doing the right thing. It's about following the Open Meetings Act. It's about if you want to make change, it's the process. As law enforcement can tell you, and you all know, those are important words in our government. If you want to believe in the Constitution, what's right and wrong, due process are the most important freedoms that we have. It's the right to be heard, not to make every decision. It's the right to be heard in an open setting without people doing things in secret. You know what the 80% was? They wanted to make change. I suggest to you, and I hope it doesn't come to this in litigation, that was the convenient reason to remove these people that was decided upon. That was the convenient reason somebody came up with. Let's do the right thing. Let's stop the nonsense on Facebook. Let's stop the tech. I don't care who it is. Okay? I don't care who it is. I barely met any people. I don't care if it's Herm or Dean or anybody else. Or going to judges for outside, stop it. Do the deliberations in front of you. Seek the legal counsel of a very good attorney that you've had for decades, quite frankly, who's well-respected in the community. Seek his counsel. I appreciate your time. I'm not going to hear all of your comments, but the process is important. And you can't hide behind the fact it was on the letterhead, or that I was walking out the door, or somebody changed it to put in the word nonfeasance, and then file a lawsuit saying hogwash. You can't bring me up. You think you can bring others up on charges of not attending meetings, but you're not subject to the same scrutiny yourself? Be careful what you ask for, ladies and gentlemen, because sometimes you get it. Sometimes you get it. I wish you all well. I hope the deliberation goes well this evening. Don't repeat everything if you choose to come to the microphone tonight about what happens. But know this, the process is the most important. And these cell phones and these emails and the like, it's a death sentence for a lot of public officials. Believe me. Believe me. You have to give these things up if somebody does a FOIA request, not only that, and see all the stuff that's on it. Let a computer, you should clean your cookies if you don't. You can delete something. And I can pay somebody $1,200 to go on your cell phone and see whatever you've put out there to whoever you've done and whatever you watched or whatever you didn't watch. And if you're a public official, watch out, because judges are ordering that stuff these days. I appreciate your time. Good evening. I'm sorry, I apologize for my back being to you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Godspeed.
Applause is not appropriate. It's not appropriate. This is a public hearing. You don't clap. All right, number 4. This is from your attorney, Mr. Rapetta?
Yes,
From Nick?
from my attorney, Nick Crucio, wrote this on my behalf, so I'll read this statement. Thank you for the opportunity to address the charges against me. After reviewing these allegations carefully, I firmly believe that I did not engage in any misconduct that would justify removing me from the Planning Commission. The evidence shows my actions were motivated by genuine desire to improve township governance. My concerns about Planning Commissioner attendance began when I was still a private citizen, regularly attending meetings. After being elected as trustee and appointed to the Planning Commission, I sought to address what I saw as a legitimate issue affecting our community. My review of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act and Michigan Zoning Enabling Act led me to understand that the planning commissioners have statutory duties that can only be fulfilled through regular attendance. The attendance records I compiled showed that 5 of the 7 commissioners attended less than 80% of the meetings in 2024 through that time period, with some attending as few as 50%. This pattern directly impacts the Commission's abilities to perform its functions. I didn't act alone or in secret. I discussed my concerns with fellow trustees and drafted a template letter for the Supervisor Carnes to consideration. I addressed this template to the supervisor because I understood he had the authority to bring charges on behalf of the board. I never signed or delivered these letters myself. While I did review the supervisor's revised letter and replied looks good, I wasn't aware of any procedural issues with how charges were brought. Not how charges were voted on in the end or removal, that's a board function, but just how charges were brought. I reject the characterization that my actions constitute conspiracy or misrepresentation of the board's authority. As I never claimed to speak for the entire board in my draft letters or anywhere. As my attorney has previously noted, my actions related to my role as a trustee, not to my position as a planning commissioner, and thus cannot constitute grounds for removal under the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. That said, I understand the situation has created tension within our township government. While I maintain I did nothing wrong, I would like to put this matter behind us. I'm committing to working collaboratively with all members of both Township Board and with the Planning Commission for the betterment of our community. I believe my dedication to public service continues to make me a valuable member of both bodies. I respectfully ask that this board dismiss these charges and allow us to refocus our energy on serving the residents of Tyrone Township. Thank you for your consideration.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
Brief rebuttal. I've just heard, I'm not going to litigate this case. I hope I don't have to do it again in court, believe me. I did not claim to speak for the entire board. I did not sign the letter, and I did not deliver the letter. Excuse me, that's not the standard. He wrote the letter. It's in his affidavit. Again, we are bringing you up on charges. And speaking of the Township Board, we will hold a public hearing. If you do not show up for this meeting, then the Tyrone Township Board will notify you of our decision. I say nothing else. I'm leaving. Good evening. Best of luck. Godspeed.
All right, we're going to move on to the last item on the public hearing, and that would be the public comments. Again, please state your name clearly in the microphone, and please be brief. Anyone?
Good evening.
Hello?
My name is Renee Jewell, and I actually prepared something to come before you tonight to talk about, and I've completely changed my mind. I am a retired fifth grade teacher, and I really do believe that I've seen more on a playground that reminds me of trouble when people get along. I spent 30 years with kids, and this somewhat reminds me of that situation. And after listening to everything tonight, like I said, I'm not going to speak to what I originally thought I would, but I just want you all to know that each and every one of you sitting on this board was elected to represent the will of the people. Not your personal agendas, not your private discussions that may happen before you ever sit at this table. All board members, every single one of you, you were chosen, you were voted upon to listen and to serve and to lead transparently. I don't know what kind of show I just saw, but I don't think what I voted for is happening here. So after listening tonight, it sounds like you all talk about matters before ever coming to the table. And I find that deeply concerning. Because if discussions and decisions are happening behind the scenes, then this table, this meeting, it's just for show. And it's not about open governance, and that is not what the people elected all of you to do. And now, even the board's attorney has confirmed that there were multiple instances where the Open Meetings Act was broken. And that's unacceptable. It confirms why many in this community, what we've actually feared, decisions being made without public input or accountability on both sides. And I will say tonight that I voted for new board members in the last election because I was not totally satisfied with the way things have been going in our township. Hearing that we're looking at solar and windmills, and that's not what I want for this community. So I voted for change. And you know, Sarah, tonight you actually said that stepping into this role as a public trustee comes with a lot to learn. I'm a board member for Fenton Schools. I can tell you, when I stepped into that role, it was a lot to learn about open meetings, Robert's Rules of Order, and a lot of different things. But where's your grace for the new board members who are trying to learn, who we elected? Where's your support? Where's the willingness to mentor rather than isolate? If you recognize how challenging this role is, then you should also recognize your responsibility to encourage others, not to tear them down. You were elected to serve the public, not protect your own comfort. It's time to start over. Work for the people, respect our vote, support the board members the community has chosen, the new ones, Greg, Dean, and Chris. We, as your constituents, deserve better, and we're watching.
All right, thank you. No clapping, please. Sure.
Richard Cerna on White Lake Road. And all I can say is, wow. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. I was a department head in New York, in the city of Kingston, and I had to attend all of their board meetings. This is just beyond belief. Violation of the Open Meetings Act by Mr. Rapetta, Mr. Haas, and Mr. Carnes is just unbelievable. And violations of the Open Meeting Act in general amongst these board members is unbelievable. I'm just beside myself. I voted for the three of you. I voted because I thought there would be transparency on this board. I didn't like the old board, what it was doing. I've lived in this township since the late 50s with my family. I bought a house in this township. I bought land in this township because I like this township. You people have to represent us, the people, not your personal views. Mr. Rapetta, you seem to want to do the right thing, but you have to go about it in the correct way. The same with you, Mr. Haas. I believe Mr. Carnes was brought into this as a backdoor for both of your approval. I voted for the three of you. I'm embarrassed and disgusted by what's going on here. I just can't believe it. I think, Mr. Rapetta, you should be removed. And you should probably resign from this board. Because if you don't, I wouldn't be surprised if there are people in this township that bring a recall against you. And they should. I would sign the petition. I may also sign the petition against Mr. Haas. You two perpetrated this whole thing and brought Mr. Carnes into it. Unwittingly, he followed you. That's my personal opinion as a resident of this township. I think you should listen to the people of this township. Also, regarding the decorum of this public meeting, Part C, persons in this audience will silence and refrain from using mobile phones. I don't know who the lady is that's videotaping this, if she is the official videographer of the township, but she is violating your code of conduct, Mr. Carnes, by doing what she's doing. Thank you very much.
Is there another person? Yeah? Yeah, you.
Can Chris hold this or no?
Please don't.
How many times have you done this? Put it there.
Can you speak into the mic, please,
You have to.
so that everybody can hear you? Thank you.
My name is Jeanette Rapetta, and tonight I am proudly here as Chris's wife, but also as a resident who has been attending nearly all of these meetings for years And tonight I'd like to remind you of a few details. In December, this board did unanimously appoint Chris to the Planning Commission. Everyone on this board knew that Chris would do an excellent job. And yes, he has. Just watch the Planning Commission videos. Then in January, surprise, 3 resolutions appear in the board packet, one that accused Chris of possibly violating the Open Meetings Act and also breaching some ethical line that was never identified. And you notice tonight, they still were not able to say what he violated and what ethical line he crossed. But that wasn't enough for one board member. She said this directly to Chris at that meeting. I feel like the actions that you've taken toward them, the Planning Commission, have really jeopardized that working relationship. That board member's comment launched this entire witch hunt. And today, after hearing the attempts to assassinate Chris's character and his good name by her and her fellow board members, residents should be asking, why did the board members feel they needed to resort to character attacks? And I'll tell you why. It's because they can't defend these charges. And meanwhile, look at what this has done to our community. We now have Tyrone Township officials and employees acting like some kind of small town street gang, circulating lies online, encouraging residents to pick up their pitchforks and then targeting us personally and our friends. And some residents and board members are saying that Chris needs to stop defending himself. Even a township board member is telling thousands of her followers that Chris needs to resign, even before this hearing. I guess it shouldn't surprise us to see her drumming up support to find him guilty once again before a public hearing ever took place. News to some of you, Chris has every right to speak, to push back when his character is under attack and when lies are being told about him and when he's facing baseless charges, and that's not defiance, that's democracy. And let's be clear, Chris didn't cause this spending, the board did. You pushed too far, even the township attorney won't defend the charges he helped you craft. So you brought in outside legal counsel and the money meter's running. There's a simple solution to all this. Stop the baseless charges, then the spending stops. But if today's vote results in removing Chris from the Planning Commission, that decision will not age well and won't be forgotten. So you still have a choice tonight, and I do pray that you choose to do what's right, that you choose the truth.
Scott.
I'm Scott Dietrich, White Lake Road. I spent a lot of time up here at meetings, and I've got to know a lot of people here that I like. We have disagreements. We've all fought for more openness, more clarity, more transparency. We all fought for it. We all fought against Urban Lake, the asphalt plant, and we won. But what I can't stand is the toxicity and the misinformation. You guys, all of you talk. It's been going on for years, and I think the attorney will confirm that you guys do, in emails, discuss issues before we come to the meeting. I don't think it says that you're not being open, because when it goes on the agenda, it's open. What you guys did was violate a contract. That's a legal document. It's not like you just went and talked about something with the lawyer. You're all capable of talking to a lawyer, and you have. You've all admitted to it. That's fine. What you guys did was what our attorney said. There's a process. We all were upset about things in the past. We want to change. Okay? Process. Slow down. Get answers. What you guys did, the three of you, you went upon yourself to draw up a document. This is fine. You could have brought it to the board, presented it, and went legally. The lawyer told you which way to go. You guys chose not to do it. Sarah said she told you not to, way in the beginning. This was before you guys were even brought in. Okay? So the fact that you put it on a letterhead, a legal document, That's where it hung you. That's where you got hung. Because you represented the whole board, 3, represented all. And I would not want my name on it if I didn't know about it. But I hope this community comes, we've all argued online. I think somebody needs to take responsibility and move on. It's cost us enough. You wrote the letter, you 3, but I'm holding all 3 of you responsible. Not just one. But Chris, to drag this on, it's a slap on the wrist. These guys on the planning commission don't want to work with you. Fine. They did. They treated you with respect when you went to the meetings, which I'm glad they did.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Gordon Tomaszewski. I live on Orchard Parkway. Like the first woman mentioned, I had pre-planned a statement, but after listening to the testimony and context of everybody involved, I've kind of changed my opinion. I'd like to state first of all that I'm a member of the team taxpayer, the one who wants the township officials to be accountable to the taxpayers. I'd also like, I know I'm being contrary, but I'd also like to be the guy who personally condemns the 3 members who did start this letter in addressing the issue of the chronic absenteeism of PC members. This whole issue can have been avoided if the board, if the board could have turned around and put their hurt feelings and egos aside. I think that there's a tremendous amount of animosity amongst the members. I think everybody on all the boards, over the years, there have been plenty of issues that could have been addressed and things that I know that were not legally done. I think what we've also witnessed is the lack of accountability by the new board. Choosing to cover the tracks of the PC members whose absences ranged in 2024 from 20 to 40%, to me is appalling as a taxpayer. What I'd like to know from the Planning Commission members, then most of these members I know are business owners, would they find it acceptable if their employees chose to only show up to work between 60 and 75% of the time? And to look at the data, as Sarah had mentioned, I've been watching from the sidelines for years. And this isn't just going back to November as far as Planning Commission member attendance goes. I know there's been special arrangements made for people who couldn't attend due to business obligations. There's people who haven't been able to attend for health issues, and I think we all understand that. But there needs to be some code of conduct in terms of the attendance of members set, and so members can be held accountable and they can truly represent the citizens.
Thank you. I see a hand over here. Yeah.
Jim Cones. The other attorney sitting over here gave us this great suggestion about asking this guy questions, right? Okay, sweet. So I'm going to give you a quote from him. Back when the January 7th meeting happened, Miss Jennifer says, this is quotes. I wrote these down verbatim. I'm not going to misquote you like you guys misquote me. I think we should ask our attorney, Chuck, if he can underline the laws that were violated when the letters went out. Here's Chuck's response. I don't know enough facts to tell you whether there's been any laws violated. A violation of the Open Meetings Act would require at least 4 members. So that's his words. I'm not making any argument, but I feel like I just got a lesson from these 3 up here on law, and then you turn around and want to tell me to ask him Well, he was either wrong then or they're wrong now. One of the two. So who do we ask? And then, Herm, I watched on the same video, you asked him, do we have any authority over the Planning Commission as the board? Or you said, we have no authority, correct, over the Planning Commission? He said, yes.
Control or jurisdiction.
You said,
Control or jurisdiction.
I wrote it down.
I say control, but go ahead.
Okay. You also, I paid attention to that.
Okay,
You did say authority in there as well.
okay.
But he says, no, that's incorrect. The board can remove planning commission members going through the right process. You appoint them, you hold them accountable. My point is, this guy has given you bad information. He has. Now, as far as okay, great. Over here, I see you smiling at me, that's pretty cool. You established less than 4 people, even though he says it's not possible, can violate the Open Meetings Act. So this here is your censure of resolution on January 7th, right? This is from the budget. He got paid $495 on December 26th to draft that up, and he even says that. So here's a quote from you, Sarah Dolman, Jersey. You're addressing this to Greg Carnes when he's being questioned about how he should have presented these letters. And by the way, that's the difference between the work and the trustees on this board that were involved in the censure. So there's more than one trustee involved in the censure. It was brought to the board table for discussion. When was that? I went back through all the meetings. January 7th is the first time it came up. So what you did, you went and got the township attorney, paid him $495, and he happens to be the legal agent of the township. You bypassed that. So who's in violation of the Open Meetings Act then? What? I want to know, when was that meeting?
Thank you, Jim.
When you brought it before the board
Thank you, Jim.
and before the public? When was that?
January 7th.
Yes.
That's it.
So you drafted up
Jim.
the resolution already, the
Jim.
document.
Jim,
Question
Thank
her
you.
on that, Greg.
thank you.
Question her. The document was drafted up. They're calling you guys letter a document?
All right,
That's a document with 3 people's names on it.
thanks, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kurt's coming up. Zach will be next.
Kurt Schultz, Silver Lake Estates, number 2. You know, it's embarrassing to stand up here again with you 3 here who have done nothing but destroy what came before you. I can't believe what I'm seeing. But I'll tell you what. There's no way he can stay on the Planning Commission. He can't. He has no trust with them. The 3 of you have no trust with most of the rest of us either. So I support the board in removing Mr. Rapetta from the Planning Commission. Now, he thinks things are going antsy-fancy there, but they're not. He has to work with these people. They don't trust him. You know, this is a job that you're supposed to be doing, Mr. Transparency there. And you've done nothing but do stuff behind everybody's back. So I support the trustees and any movement to take him off of the Planning Commission. Thank you.
All right, Zach?
Good evening. My name is Zach Tucker. I'm primarily going to address a text message that was in the packet this evening, so I think it's relevant to the credibility of the individual the board is considering action against. I sit on the Tyrone Township Planning Commission. I'm discussed by Mr. Rapetta on, by my count, page 19 of the board packet tonight. I'm not sure exactly what a Cunningham crony is. I am fairly sure that that is an untrue statement. I'm 100% sure that the indication that I voted with Mr. Cunningham 100% of the time is untrue. That is a lie. I believe it is readily apparent that page 19 of the board packet is yet another example of Mr. Rapetta using lies to advance a personal agenda. He wanted to keep me off the planning commission, and he lied to the chair of this board in an effort to accomplish that objective. That is a huge problem. And what Mr. Rapetta attempted to do to me is nothing compared to what he tried to do using lies about the other planning commission members, the subject of this evening's hearing. I see no way that a dishonest individual can effectively serve as ex officio to the Township Planning Commission. Setting all the other issues aside, and there are many, the Planning Commission cannot possibly trust Mr. Rapetta to accurately represent this board at our meetings. And I have zero trust in Mr. Rapetta's capacity to report truthfully to the board about the actions of the Planning Commission. I believe the removal of Mr. Rapetta is the only way to correct this problem, and I thank the board for considering this matter this evening. I'll close by asking the board and the public to consider what Mr. Rapetta did not say as much as what he did. This is in part because of what I perceive as his dishonesty, and in part because I didn't hear denial of the elements of the charges against him. Thank you.
John?
John Ward, Tyrone Township resident and chairman of the Planning Commission. I don't want to repeat a lot of things that have already been said, but I do want to speak to the due process. I guess I was just very disappointed to hear this, displeasure of my service on the Planning Commission after a letter, that was handed to me. There was no discussion before that. After seeing the text message that Zach brought up just here, am I considered a Cunningham crony because I was appointed by Mike Cunningham? I've probably talked to him 4 times in my life. 2 of them were at joint board meetings, which I would recommend. That's how you get the board together with the Planning Commission and you can work out what we want to work on. Maybe that includes attendance, but we've never had one of those. We went right to a charge. And speaking of the charge of the nonfeasance for attendance, I'm curious why the excused absences weren't even brought up. Did you even count excused or unexcused? Where the subcommittees weren't brought up. You know how much work we do behind the scenes with the subcommittee? We come in here and meet. That wasn't taken into account at all. I missed 3 meetings that year. At the point when I was given that letter, I attended 11 out of 14 held meetings. That's 78% less than your made up 80%, right? But when you missed the March meeting, Planning Commission meeting, which was your 3rd meeting in, what was your percentage at that random time throughout the year? Is that a charge of nonfeasance for missing? No. I ended up making 12 out of 15 held meetings, 80%. So maybe I'm good now, I don't know. But I guess I'm just, I support the board in the censure. I support the board in the charges of misfeasance and malfeasance, and I support the board for removal of Chris Rapetta from the Planning Commission. And I hope that we can get a new ex officio in there and work together and accomplish our planning business. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mike Amberg. I've been a resident of Tyrone Township for about 31 years. I've been attending a lot of these meetings recently because of, obviously, the contentious situation. I can only say I understand the position of the Planning Commission. If, as an employer or an employee, you find out that you have not met 80% of a goal, something that you don't know is a goal, nor is written down anywhere in your goals, how can you achieve something that you don't know about or be held to that standard? It doesn't make sense. And going back 1 or 3 years, and that's a concern that I heard today, was we've got 1 year of data, we could go back to 3. That data does not count. Whether it's 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, until that metric is established. You can't go back and hold somebody accountable for a standard that didn't exist. And yeah, the reaction of the Planning Commission is totally understandable, and I would expect that to happen. Because if you want to drive animosity with your employees, hold them to standards that don't exist, that they don't know about. And that's really all I've got to say about it. Is it an issue? Probably. Does it need to be discussed? Yeah. But I think it's a measurement that needs to be established with the Planning Commission's input. I just found out there were subcommittees that were going on. Didn't know about it, but we learn every day. So these things need to be worked out together. Otherwise, we're back to square one. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Paul White. I live in Windy Hill Drive. Been a resident of Tyrone Township for over 50 years. I moved out for a few years. I moved back in because I love this township. But what I see going on here is the biggest joke I've ever seen. And some people should be held accountable. And I don't know, but people don't realize in this state, Michigan's one of a handful of states that has township government. Governor Granholm, the only sense she made is township government needs to go bye-bye. It's a waste of taxpayers' money, and this is a perfect example. It's a three-ring circus up here, wasting tax dollars, time, and more valuable time should be going to making this township grow. And you guys should be ashamed of what you've done at this township, going behind the residents' back. You had this agenda before you got elected, and I'm just catching on to part of what's going on here now. But this agenda was set up before you got in office, and you're going to try to run this place like a kangaroo court. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, Kevin? Didn't see your hand there.
Kevin Ross, Heartland Road. I'd like to respond to the letter to the editor published by Trustee Chris Rapetta in the video he recorded reading it aloud, both of which attempt to recast him as a misunderstood hero it's a nice performance, but let's not mistake it for the truth. Trustee Rapetta claims that when he took office, he noticed an attendance issues on the Planning Commission and immediately sprang into action, consulting with Supervisor Carnes and Trustee Haas, drafting language and prompting the supervisor to send disciplinary action to the Planning Commission. He makes us all sound very orderly and above board, but what he leaves out is critical. First, there was no public discussion. There was no board resolution. There was no legal review before the letter went out on an official township letterhead. That's not just a breach of process. That's a misrepresentation of the board's authority. Trustee Rapetta, Supervisor Carnes, and Trustee Haas collaborated privately, acted unilaterally, and bypassed the rest of the board entirely. The planning commissioners, volunteers, let's remember, were blindsided by the official-looking reprimand that had no legal footing. Second, Rapetta claims that this letter was somehow effective because planning commission attendance has improved. But let's be clear, the improvements came after the letter was rescinded, after the backlash, after trust was shattered. That's not leadership. It was an ambush, and you don't get a light of fire, step back, and then take credit when the smoke clears. He also paints himself as a victim, saying that he's been targeted not for misconduct, but for asking the tough questions. That's a convenient distraction from the truth. Trustee Rapetta is being held accountable for misleading the public misusing township authority, and engaging in coordinated backroom actions that erode trust in this board and its processes. And now, instead of accepting responsibility, he's doubled down, using newspaper columns and YouTube videos to push self-serving narrative. Meanwhile, his wife and a small but loud group of defenders have flooded social media with emotional appeals, false equivalency, and outright lies. They've accused others of harassment, corruption, while ignoring a procedural misconduct that started all of this in the first place. It's not leadership to manufacture drama and then act shocked when people call it out. It's not transparency to manipulate facts and weaponize social media, and it's certainly not public service to posture as a martyr while evading accountability for your own decisions. I'm not here to score political points. I'm here because I believe the public deserves better than gaslighting, grandstanding, finger-pointing from elected officials. We need leaders who work with the board, within the law, and in service of the community. Trustee Rapetta says he's doing what he was elected to do. I would argue he wasn't elected to create chaos, circumvent process, and then play victim when people push back.
Anybody else? Mike?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Mike Cunningham, Heartland Road. I keep hearing the comment that the planning commission members are employees. They're not on payroll. They get a stipend for attending a meeting, and it's a small amount. They are residents of our township. They're family members, they have wives, they have children, they have jobs, they own businesses. And we're fortunate, we have a very diverse planning commission. All experts in their fields and things that they do, they own businesses, and that's what you want in a planning commission. They're gonna have children that are sick. They're gonna have family vacations. They're gonna have excused absences, some that is not privy to be discussed. And based on what happened, if that one of those people decide that they wanna make a legal case out of it, and even John Galooly touched on it, we're screwed. And it's a big time lawsuit. The comments that were made about holding them accountable as an employee, you gotta understand, they're volunteers. They're here because they wanna be here. And yes, they're gonna miss. Supervisor Carnes, you were a volunteer. 20 plus years. Did we look at your record? I've looked at some of it. You're right there too. But did that diminish what you were trying to do? Did that diminish your character or loyalty to the township? And Mr. Tough Questions over here. Where were those tough questions to the planning commission members? Hey guys, we want to know why, let's have a conversation. Come into the office. Why aren't you here? Well, I have a medical excuse. I had a family vacation. You could have asked those tough questions to the planning commission members. And you didn't. This was all of a result of all the going off the rails and assumptions that have been made over the last 5 years of things that were going wrong without finding out the facts and finding out how things operate, the laws that we have to follow. As a township supervisor and a township board member, it's nothing like running a business. There's a law for every law that you have to know. So just because it doesn't look like it's ran the way you want it to, it's being ran because there's laws that you have to follow and abide by. So educate yourself, guys.
Anybody else? Yep.
Hello, my name is Amanda Combs, and just kind of taking notes. I had no intentions of speaking. So the words that just through all the statements, deliberate misrepresentation, false pretense, violated public trust, no honesty, no integrity, that they fraudulently, they misquoted the board. What was their intent was asked. It's wrong. Where's the accountability? Right, so we hear all this. And the woman that came up here first, I agree 100% with her. Was everything done right? I don't know, but what I am going to say is on March 4th, meeting minutes, when my husband was up here, and we have pictures of it, who posts the meeting minutes on your website? Who does that? One of you? You put 38 words that my husband said, Jim Combs. Then he called you out on it the next meeting, and somebody went back and reduced it to 5. So before you sit here and judge and talk about falsely accusing and integrity, I'd like to know who put 38 words that my husband supposedly said that he didn't. So I suggest you take a look at all of you, because you paint yourself pretty good. But what my point is, everyone's screwing up here. So, again, and I would still like an answer. Who put 38 words and misquoted, misrepresented? I mean, you talk about these planning commission members, they were humiliated, they were wrongdoing, they were blindsided. So who's being held accountable for that?
That was me. That was me. I'm not an
Okay.
elected official.
Yeah. So why are you not outraged? You know about it because he came back.
But that's why it goes to the board.
No. My point is the outrage. You are so outraged out of these words, wrongdoing, false pretense. Why are you not up in arms?
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. And we will move into the approval of the agenda. The normal board meeting.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Approval of the consent agenda. We have the board meeting minutes, March 25th, board meeting minutes of April 1st, 2025, treasurer's report, March 31st, 2025, and the clerk's warrants and bills, April 9th, 2025.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Communications. We have legal costs to date for the censors, FOIA, and related court case. We have the Livingston County Sheriff's Report, March 31st, 2025. We have the Planning Commission approved meeting minutes, March 11th, 2025. Planning Commission meeting and public hearing synopsis, April 8th, 2025, and the financial report, February 28th, 2025.
Support.
Any comments?
I have a motion first.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Herman's made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Public remarks on the agenda items only, please. No public remarks. You do? Yep. All right.
Rapetta?
Can you use the microphone, please?
Restart the clock, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Jeanette Rapetta again, and I'm proud to say I'm Chris's wife. You've just wrapped up a public hearing where the charges still are vague and the commentary and attacks were personal. And now you're going to be discussing the one item on the agenda tonight. One item you guys are getting done. Here's what everyone should know. Chris never wanted to be in politics. He didn't run for status or recognition. He stepped forward because he saw what many of us saw.
Hey, quiet.
A township where ordinances weren't being updated and being selectively enforced depending on who you know in this community. This is blatantly clear, and Chris attended almost every planning commission meeting for 2 years and observed it all. He saw a planning commission that had become careless. Of public record, it is 8 lawsuits carried over from the last administration. Some of those are directly tied to the planning commission. Chris ran because he loves this community and he wants to help. And since taking office, that's exactly what he's done. He comes fully prepared, reading every packet thoroughly, researching the issues, etc. And you only need to observe a few meetings, even on this board, to know that some do the bare minimum and don't even read the packets. So now I ask, who benefits if you remove him? Certainly not the residents and certainly not the planning commission. But there's an answer to that question. Just watch and observe. Sorry. Chris was targeted before he ever attended a single meeting as a commissioner by the resolution. And this effort to remove him is based on someone's discomfort, and then a campaign was launched to remove him. Some of you on the board, along with other officials, have spent months trying to sway public opinion, especially in the lead up to tonight, to make Chris look like the problem. But what has he actually done? He defended himself. He's posted videos explaining the truth. That's transparency, and it's a huge difference from what those who are desperately trying to pin something on him. If you had a solid case, you wouldn't need outside counsel, and you wouldn't need a PR campaign. Chris isn't the one causing harm, but removing him from the Planning Commission, that will be causing harm to the good residents of this township. If you go through with this removal, the real loss will be the trust of the people watching this unfold, and it won't be over. Thank you.
Scott?
Scott Dietrich, White Lake Road again. All right, let's get back to the basics. We all wanted change. We all wanted more transparency. We all wanted accountability. Accountability. Do I think there's mistakes made? Yeah. And we all knew that before we even voted. We wanted to try to clean things up. Sarah's pushing for more education and people voted against it. We need to be, you guys probably need to be, with all the laws, you guys do need to be more educated. Okay, but accountability. Like I said, you guys put out a legal document. I mean, I've worked with legal documents because I sold real estate. Okay, and I've Listen, I've been in court a bunch of times with Ford Motor Company, with different companies, and I've won with good lawyers, and I learned a lot of stuff.
Stay on the agenda.
No, I'm talking about law.
Well,
Okay. Well, what I'm trying to tell you is, it's legal. Process. You got away from the process. That's what killed you for me. Greg, you threw me off.
I need you to stay
Well,
on
you
the
interrupted.
agenda.
You're right. Well, it was. It's all legal. I'm trying to explain this. But you guys got to understand this. We wanted accountability. So take the accountability. We all got to take responsibility. We did want change. We all fought for it. We were all angry. It all started way back at the asphalt plant. Okay, I mean, it seems like it just festered from there. Now, we can probably get better and get less mistakes. I'm not going to say no one makes mistakes. But if someone does something completely illegal, I'm not good with it. And I held other people responsible in the past, and I'm going to hold them responsible in the future. I have to. I don't want to belong to a group. I've worked with I come here and talk to every one of them. I'll talk to all my neighbors out there. There's nothing wrong with talking. It's doing things illegally that bothers me. In the future, I want this township to be more open with the people and work together. But we can't, because there's too much toxicity and misinformation, and the grandstanding has got to stop. I don't like the grandstanding. And Chris, you do that. It's just like you try to explain things and you just go on and on when it's just like, just tell them, we knew what the lawyer said, and you had to go on and on and on and drag it on like you're the most important person in the world. No, you're a resident. Do it the right way.
Again, Richard Cerna from White Lake Road, and I can appreciate Mrs. Rapetta defending her husband. That's what she's supposed to do. But the one item on the agenda is your vote. I would encourage you to remove Mr. Rapetta from the planning board. That is the wise thing to do. This is just beyond belief, in my opinion. I'm mind-boggled by this. I sat on city board meetings in New York that were less than this. This is a joke.
Quiet.
This is just a joke. I can't believe it. I can't believe that Tyrone Township is the laughing stock of my friends when they look at what's going on. I know, Mr. Rapetta, you meant well. But you have to follow the law. That's all I can say is follow the law. If you don't want somebody on the board, that's fine. You can't make up an 80% figure. I was a supervisor in healthcare for 17 years at Henry Ford. And if I had done what you had done, I wouldn't have been a supervisor there anymore. You can't antagonize people like that. Don't make things up, okay? Do it the correct way. Bring the agenda to the board. Make the board decide, let's send out this letter. Not 3 people decide or 2 people write it and coerce a third person into sending the letter out to the board. That's what I feel has happened. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jim?
So to kind of finish my point I didn't get to make.
Well, stick to the agenda.
I am.
It's just an agenda item.
Well, I'm talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's on the agenda. So my point was, what these guys and you, Greg, are being accused of is generating this document, which is a letter, right? So, okay, legal document. My point with that is, okay, playing by those rules. This censure was generated at the tune of $495 to us taxpayers. She took that on her own to do that. There was no open meeting. You said January 7th was the first time it came up. It was. I've checked all the meetings.
It was.
Yes. So when did you go? You're saying they're supposed to come for a vote just to send a letter?
It goes
Why
in the
didn't
board
you come for a
packet.
vote to draft up a
Jeff.
resolution that cost us all $500?
It would have to go in the board packet as documentation, be discussed at the board table, and then voted upon, which is exactly what happened with the
That's
censure
exactly
document.
what they were going to do with the planning commission.
No, it is not. I'm sorry, it's
Yes,
not.
you're gonna come to the meeting, we're gonna review this, they were making a decision has to be voted on. You know what I'm saying. You're a double talker. You are. You're trying to hold them accountable for something you won't hold yourself accountable to. That is zero integrity. And you guys, I appreciate you guys. I do. And I'll tell you this, everyone wants to drag him through the mud and say he's dragging this township into court. When his own resolution says possibly violated, and then when you question him on it, he says, I can't tell you any law's been broke. Go watch the video. I read the quote to you. So I would do the same as you. He has a right to defend himself, and we all would, with bogus allegations. That's why this other attorney says, I don't want to take this to court. You know why? Because he knows it ain't got no legs. And we're going to find that out.
We will.
We will. And I wouldn't want my name on that. I'll be honest with you. So, good job, guys.
Hey, Chuck, can you clarify anything that he said? Would you like to clarify anything? Or because we have special counsel that already explained all that this evening?
Council did explain it, but I will say this. The quote that he read earlier. He got
In the mic, yes, please.
Should go up.
it on?
Yes.
He earlier quoted something that I said at a board meeting, saying that I don't know if there are any laws broken. I also said because I don't know enough facts yet. I did not know about the communications that were going on through email and text messages. I didn't know the extent of the conversations. And so I wasn't prepared to say that there was a violation of the law.
So can I ask you a question? How did you have enough information to draft up the resolution and charges for it? How did you have enough information to do that, but now you won't stand behind it? That makes no sense. You can answer if you want. I mean, I'm asking a question. I get a lot of zero answers. How did you have enough information to draft?
Jim, please stop. Please stop.
This is why we don't answer questions.
This is why questions are not answered, because you have to do it one-on-one.
Okay.
That's why we don't answer questions to the audience.
Unfinished business.
Where are we at? Public remarks. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm not gonna sit because I only need 3 minutes. Is this thing on? Hello? My name's Randy Pierce, Heartland Road. I'm really hopeful we come to a resolution on this tonight because it's just been ridiculous. I'm willing to abide by anything you guys decide, yes or no with Chris. I've heard the story time and time and time again. Tonight we heard the same story 6 times, 6 different ways. And unfortunately, I agree with you guys. You are being transparent because we can see right the hell through you, just like Casper the Ghost. Figure out a way to get this done and put us back into the business of a township and not all this crap. And that's it.
I agree. Thank you. I agree. Any other public? Bill?
Bill Wood, Heartland Road. Just one question.
Okay.
I would like to know what this has cost us so far, if you could pull that up.
I think she already had that. She said that back in communications.
$3,238.75.
It was,
I believe it was more.
Put another 5 or 6 on that.
it was, hey,
That's all we got right now.
all right, any other public remarks? All right, I'm gonna move into unfinished business. We have nothing. So we will move into new business in the consideration of Chris removal.
Mr. Supervisor, because of the apparent conflict of interest, I would suggest that Mr. Rapetta refrain from participating in the discussion and obviously the vote too.
Just to clarify that people can vote for their own raises, but I don't have a vote for my own removal. I'm just checking. I mean,
My understanding, you can ask, but he doesn't have to,
Right.
unless he has a financial
Right.
gain involved in it, which he doesn't.
I have no financial gain involved in this.
Actually, you have a financial loss, so keep going.
So I would prefer.
I would just like to say one thing that you need to, board, you need to consider your vote carefully, because if this does go to the court, you know, Chuck and I, we've discussed this before. The judges typically do not like dealing in petty township politics. And so it's hard to say which way the judge is going to go on this. And so consider your vote carefully on which way, what you do here, because what you're about to do is take some serious legal action against another board member.
Greg, is that a threat to the rest of us as to
I'm-
how you have some insider
I'm just saying-
information?
I am just saying that the judge could say not guilty
What
as well as
judge?
guilty.
Is there something you know that we don't?
I'm just saying, it's the conversation I had with Chuck.
Tired of you spending our money, Sarah.
Exactly. It's gonna just keep dragging on.
And you're resigned.
How many months, how many weeks have I asked people to drop this and stop it? And here we are, 8, 9, 10 weeks, and it's still going on.
And why is that?
And guess what? You do this, it could go on for another 8, 9, 10 weeks until
Why are
the
you
judge
blaming us?
decides.
Greg, why are you blaming us?
I'm not blaming
Yeah, you are. You're saying that the 4 people that
I'm
voted,
just
are you
saying.
blaming us? Yes, you
I'm
are.
just saying, consider your vote.
We are considering it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, considered.
So there you go. I'll entertain a motion.
I have a comment. I want to remind the board that the trustees have 2 statutory duties. Township regulators required to vote on issues responsible for township fiduciary health. Nowhere in there does it state that your statutory duty is to remove planning commission members. Nowhere in there does it state that you could present a letter on behalf of the board. After all the information that was presented tonight, I'm not sure how we can ask the planning commission members to work with Chris on the board. Trust and integrity is truly, absolutely broken. As a board member, I am embarrassed by the action of these members. And the waste of time, energy, money spent over the last 4 months on this issue is crazy, ludicrous, actually. If the rules of the OMA were followed and you had brought your concerns to the board to discuss, it could have saved all of this time, money, energy. I hope the board can put this to the past and then start working together going forward as a board, meaning all of us together. That's it.
Let's be quiet, please.
You ready for a motion?
Yeah.
I make a motion that we vote to remove Chris Rapetta from the Planning Commission.
We have to,
You gonna read that?
I think we first have to determine whether or not the charges are warranted.
Yeah, I have a motion. He made a motion. Do we have a second?
I know, but I think do we not have to make sure that we have to,
Quiet, please.
You have a two-step process. You have to make a decision whether or not the charges and the evidence satisfies those charges. If you choose that it does not satisfy those charges, that's the end of the matter. If you find that it does satisfy the charges, then the next step is what, if anything, is the Board of Trustees going to do? So the first issue is whether or not the facts support the charges.
in that case, I make a motion that the Tyrone Township Board finds the Planning Commissioner Chris Rapetta's actions and omissions were and are malfeasance and misfeasance based on the following. Conspired to conceive and actively participated in drafting a letter to the Planning Commission members informing them that the Township Board was charging them with nonfeasance and requested they appear before the board for a public hearing to explain their position. Conducted township business in the name of the Township Board and thereby misrepresented the board and its authority. Language written in the letter directly stated that the Township Board made a collective decision to charge planning commissioners with nonfeasance, even though there was never a publicly held meeting of the Township Board, quorum present or vote taken, was present upon letter delivery, knowing the letter held false statements that would adversely impact fellow planning commissioners.
You can't make that motion because Herm already made one.
Yep.
Chuck, would you like to advise?
There is a motion.
There is a motion, but you said there was no second.
I didn't have a second on that first motion.
All right, I withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
Try again.
Now, again.
I make a motion that the Tyrone Township Board finds that Planning Commissioner Chris Rapetta's actions and omissions were and are malfeasance and misfeasance based on the following. Conspired to conceive and actively participated in drafting a letter to the Planning Commission members informing them that the Township Board was charging them with nonfeasance and requested they appear before the board for a public hearing to explain their position. Conducted township business in the name of the Township Board and thereby misrepresented the board and its authority. Language written in the letter directly stated that the Township Board made a collective decision to charge planning commissioners with nonfeasance, even though there was never a publicly held meeting of the Township Board, quorum present or vote taken, was present upon letter delivery, knowing the letter held false statements that would adversely impact fellow planning commissioners.
Support.
Roll call vote, please.
Jennifer Eden?
Yes.
Greg Carnes?
No.
Dean Haas?
No.
Chris Rapetta?
No.
Pam Moffler? Yes.
What about Herman?
Get two more.
Herman, Sarah.
I already did roll call.
Well, we didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We motioned and supported.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sullivan, Jersey, and Herman?
Yes.
Ferguson. Okay.
That's what happens when the meetings are so late.
Mm-hmm. When it's 10:30 at night.
All right.
We have a motion here?
What's that? Where did he vote it?
No, we did this.
No, we've removed him from the, no,
No,
We've just-
that is not what we
we've
did.
just confirmed
that's consideration.
Miss Feasel.
I make a motion to recommend removal of trustee Chris Rapetta as the appointed ex officio to the planning commission effective immediately.
Support?
Roll call?
Sarah Dolman Jersey,
Yes.
Herman Ferguson,
Yes.
Pam Opler, yes. Greg Carnes,
No.
Jennifer Eden,
Yes.
Dean Haas,
No.
Chris Rapetta,
No.
All right. So, Chris has been removed as the ex officio from the planning commission,
effective immediately.
effective immediately. Yes.
So that means that he will not be attending
Tomorrow
the
night.
next meeting tomorrow
Right.
night?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, miscellaneous business.
Miscellaneous business. I see Robert Carenduff, the fire chief, has sat through all this. You still back there, buddy? Okay. I received an email from him yesterday, and he stated a few things that they have done outside of invoicing the township. But the one item I would like to, the one paragraph, do you mind if I read the one paragraph? It's in regards to the gentleman that we denied his appeal at the last meeting. He was from Frankenmuth, and he got charged with our emergency fee. He was in an accident on 23. Anyway, and we denied his appeal. Regarding the last individual that was appealing his bill from the township, he said he was from Frankenmuth and that he had never heard of cost recovery. I can tell you many municipalities have a cost recover ordinance. In fact, I would say more do than don't. I've attached the city of Frankenmuth's ordinance. So what we do is common, despite what the gentleman alluded to in the meeting the last board meeting, yeah. So, anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Last public remarks? Yes, Scott?
Scott Dietrich, White Lake Road. I hope, I guess we got everybody's.
Yeah.
I hope in the future we can hold everybody accountable. And I think it's a shame that people are getting blamed that didn't do this. I mean, you guys all can talk. You need to talk. We want you to talk. You guys are approved to all talk to our attorney. Okay? Get it on the agenda and put it in front of us. That's all I want. And I want the people out here to get along and come together to these meetings. I'm glad everybody's here. I think it was a pretty respectful meeting. And we can all go outside, not threaten each other and scream and holler at each other, but just take responsibility. Okay? But you're going to talk. And people, I come in here and talk to everybody in here. I've even walked over and asked Chuck questions before the meeting, and he's answered my questions. So everybody's been accommodating to me. It's not that difficult, but do things right. Follow the processes. That's all I ever asked for. But I do want more openness. I know you know, Greg, you said it's when everybody was screaming and hollering, that's why we don't answer questions. We used to have a little bit more answers, but it just got so toxic that a lot, the board members just started clamming up. We can get answers, but I can understand why you don't, because you're getting attacked. And, we all got to take responsibilities for that. I'm not saying I wasn't mad. I've been mad several times. It's frustrating. So hopefully in the future, we can all work together. I'm hoping my neighbors behind me, we can get this behind us and we can move on. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. It's up to you, Chris. I mean, you know how to run things. You're very educated and you speak well. You know the right way to do things. So let's try to do them in the. I know there's been a lot of things said, but you're going to dictate how the future goes. It's you. Don't blame it on anybody else. You want to take it down the road and go get a lawyer and go back, do it. I don't care. I'm going to support the board. I'm going to support my community, and shame on you if you do sue our township.
Yes? Oh, yeah. See her.
My name is Lois Spohr. I live on Walnut Shores Drive. I think everybody in this room and in the community wants to move forward in a positive way beyond this controversy. I don't believe the residents of the township yearn for another lawsuit. Mr. Carnes alluded to the idea that unless the board did not remove Mr. Rapetta, the board would face a lawsuit. But that's not the only option. I don't believe that Mr. Rapetta intended for the extreme fallout that has taken place. I watched a video where he said he would serve the community, either as a planning commission member or as a member of the audience. He has the opportunity to help the community move forward by accepting the decision the board made tonight and not to pursue a lawsuit against Tyrone Township. What we know, we do. And when we know better, we do better.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Amber again. I'll keep it short because I know it's late. Yes, my question is, what's the next step? Mr. Rapetta's no longer on the planning commission meeting, so there's an open chair, I presume. Does that mean somebody from the trustees gets appointed again? Because obviously we want to keep things moving forward. And Mr. Carnes, I do appreciate the input and may not have been taken by everybody the right way regarding consideration on the vote and the way current judges are ruling, because, yeah, we're kind of in uncharted waters as far as I understand. So that's just my question. Thank you.
In answer to your question, we'll, at the next board meeting, consider a new appointment. And the board will. Further, yeah. Anybody else? I thought she was coming up, but she just waved me off.
Greg, I have a question for Chuck. Does there have to be somebody on the board, on the planning commission from the board? Is there a state law that says that?
No, the board can't force one of its members to sit on the PC.
So they can operate without a trustee on the planning commission?
Yeah, I think it's permissive, and I'll double check to make sure, and I'll
No,
advise you.
it's fine. They've operated before without one, so, I mean, it happens. We'll fill it in as soon as possible. Yes?
Gordon Tomaszewski. One of the questions I have, if you're going to run the planning commission and not have a trustee present on the board, to me, that brings back the same issue that we have here. They're going to run independently, but they have no accountability to the board members for the instance such as absenteeism. And I, as a taxpayer and a member, community member, I expect that you would hold those members to a standard that's substantially higher than what we typically expect maybe of even some of the trustees. They're making some very, very crucial decisions for the township, as we know, in regards to the solar and other past zoning issues and everything else. So I think what happened with this fiasco, as I call it, this brought out the glaring discrepancy in the township and not having a official code of conduct or ethics standards. And I know they have a code of conduct, but it's very vague. And that's one of the things that over the years I've watched, and just simply the issue with the attendance, financial disclosure. There's no mention of anybody doing financial disclosures. Personally, I would like to know what businesses these people are involved in the community and what businesses they're associating with, because I've seen times where there's been a conflict of interest on planning commission members voting on their friends' issues or even on a business, their own business, or a family member's business. So I think it would be detrimental not to have somebody from the board on that commission. And that's my personal take.
Yeah, John?
John Ward, Tyrone Township resident and chairman of the Planning Commission. As far as the ex officio member, just reading from the bylaws, I'm not sure if this supersedes any of the state law, but it does say that one member shall be appointed by the board to serve as a board's representative. So I guess the way I understand it, it's required, but I'm not certain of that. But either way, I do recommend it. Kurt Schultz back here, he was the ex officio for a number of years when I was on the Planning Commission, and he did a great job of facilitating the conversation between the Township Board and the Planning Commission. Him together with the supervisor called, once again, I mentioned this before, a joint meeting. We get together and talk about action items and maybe expectations and stuff like that. I really appreciate all the transparency and everything from Sarah, and in my opinion, I think Sarah would make a good fit for the ex officio for the Planning Commission. Thank you.
John? Anybody else? Jeanette?
Jeanette Rapetta, still here, and I continue to be very.
We can't hear you speak in the mic.
Thank you.
Jeanette Rapetta, I'm still here, and I continue to be very proud to be Chris's wife and proud of the job that he's done. And so here it is. Tonight, this board chose to remove Chris. And when you go back over it and you really look at these charges, you will see there was no misconduct, no breaking of laws, not even for violating a single written policy. Nobody could name exactly what they were. So I guess it's for being inconvenient, for someone being uncomfortable, for someone's hurt feelings, whatever. But here's what you did. You removed a man who volunteered, who showed up, who prepared, and who served this community with more integrity and thoughtfulness than most people ever bring into public office. This decision wasn't about serving the public. It was about protecting each other and others who are pulling the strings from questions, from accountability, and from change. You set out to damage and punish him, but here's what you've really done. Here's what you've done. You've sent a message to every capable, qualified resident who might have thought about stepping up to serve. Some are in this room or were earlier. And here's your message to them. Don't bother running, because if you challenge the wrong people, we'll come after you too. You've discouraged civic involvement, you've politicized everything, and you've spent taxpayer money to try to remove him. Here's what you didn't do, okay? You didn't silence us. You may have taken a vote tonight, but you did not win. I know my husband. He will always continue to fight for what's right, to serve this township in ways that don't require your permission. He will continue to expose the truth, and so will I. Because real leadership doesn't stop because a group of progressive liberals tell you to shut up. And real community...
Enough of the insults, Greg. We don't need that.
And really? Is that an insult?
No, we
Some
don't
people
need
like
it.
it. Really? Come on, bring it on, Herman.
Stop.
Just listen to it.
Oh, I can't.
Bring it on. Really? Conduct policy?
Just to be respectful.
Yes, I'm being very respectful. Some are very proud to be progressive
come on.
liberals. Can I finish without being interrupted?
Please just
Thank you.
finish.
Because real leadership doesn't stop because a group of progressive liberals tell you to shut up. And real community isn't built on intimidation and loyalty tests. It's built on truth. This will be remembered not only because we will keep bringing it up, but because you made it a defining moment in our township history. You think people aren't going to continue investigating what's been done? And I have 10 seconds left.
No, you don't.
Do you think people aren't paying attention? You're wrong. We're all paying attention now, and we're not going anywhere.
Is there anybody else? Any other public comment?
Motion to
All right, motion to adjourn.
Support.
Jennifer and her.
Everybody.
Oh, just 10 minutes shy of 4 hours. Nice job.
So how sore is the hands?
Shit, I have a 5-hour car ride. But you know what? I'll send you pictures in my grass skirt.
Yeah, I don't even want to hear it. Think we feel sorry for you? No.
I'll tell you what time do you guys want to talk about this?
Not that far.
Oh, as you're on your vacation doing this?
I'll have my layover. I'm calling over when I'm doing the in-flight.
What time is that?
I'm not sure. I'll give you a heads
I get on that way. Thank you, Gal. Thank you.